Last Monday, I watched The Shining. I haven't seen this movie in, I don't know, maybe 20 something years. I remember as a kid, it haunted me. It came out in 1980. This is one of Stanley Kubrick's masterpieces, I think, to me. I mean, I love 2001, Clockwork Orange, most of his other films. But this to me is like a seminal piece of art. If you've ever watched this movie and walked away from it thinking, my God, Jack Torrance is the most evil man in the world, you'd be wrong. I watched this movie last Monday night, and I watched it immediately after I watched it again. And over the last 7 days, I've watched this movie 13 times, 13 to 14 times. I mean, probably more like 14, because a few times I was, just going through it and making notes, rewinding, pausing, going forward, pausing, rewinding, writing down note after note after note. I've got 7 pages of notes here. I think this movie is more about mental health. And you probably thought that anyway, right? You thought that Jack was a crazy killer. And again, you'd be wrong. And I'm going to attempt to break this down, step by step, of all the things that Stanley's trying to explain to us that most of us just never got. I mean, a few people, when I was doing my research, I saw that there was a few videos out there, and there's some websites, some blogs that kind of cover what I'm going to cover, but not into the great depth and detail, and they leave a lot of things unanswered. And I'm going to try to answer all of this. I'm going to try to answer why Jack never killed anybody. So 2 things to make note of, and you'll see these, when they show this, that I just want to go ahead and talk about right now. There's a lot of discrepancies about a scene that's in Mr. Ullman's office. Now, this is the general manager of the Overlook Hotel, and it has something to do with his desk. There is a red book that's on his desk, and everybody, well, I'm sorry, not everybody, a few people that have got videos out there are claiming that this is C.G. Jung's The Red Book. Well, that would be hard to do because the Red Book wasn't published until 2009. So, in doing more research, people are saying that it is the Hotel and Motel Registry. Well, that's not true either, because what is on Mr. Ullman's desk, and we'll get into this, I'll show you, is paperback. While the Hotel and Motel Registry was a hardback book. I know this because my dad, who was a general manager of a hotel, of the Hershey Motor Lodge and Convention Center, and my grandfather, who was the GM of the Essex House and then became the president of HERCA, which is Hershey Entertainment and Resorts. So Hershey Hotels, Hershey Park, things like that in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And in their offices, they had this book. They had the Hotel and Motel Registry. It is a hardback book, and it is essentially the yellow pages for hotels. So it has every hotel, whether they have a restaurant, what amenities they have, every listing of every hotel that is part of, whether you had to sign up to be a part of this book. So it is not the Hotel and Motel Registry. Could it be that Stanley Kubrick, knew about Carl Jung's Red Book, which was kind of widely known, I guess since 1962, because Jung never wanted any of his stuff published. Most of his works, the Black Books and the Red Book, were his personal journals. This was his own, it's as if he was being his own shrink. And they're available on audio. So if you go onto Audible, they have them. And it's just an amazing listen to get a deep dive into Carl Jung's mind. But so could you imagine that, that he wanted this book on this desk to show us something, and the prop master was like, all I can come up with this book, it does say Red Book on the side. You can barely see it, but it is on the manager's desk on the corner. And in 1 minute it's straight, and then another minute it's turned. So he's giving us a visual cue and a clue, like pay attention to this. Because Jung's book deals with active imagination, having dreams while you are wide awake, your inner demons. And I think that's what this movie is all about. But then there's another book that doesn't get, I've not seen anybody talk about this. And again, I'll show you here in a minute, so be patient with me. Wendy, in one of the opening scenes, Wendy is reading a book, and it is The Catcher in the Rye. She could be reading any book, in this movie. Doesn't matter, right? If it's just a book, why does it matter what book she's reading? Because we clearly see the cover of the book, and it is The Catcher in the Rye. And why this is important is because J.D. Salinger's book, The Catcher in the Rye, it's about alienation, not feeling like you belong, internal angst. Also, Caulfield, the main character, lies a lot. He meets a woman on a train, gives her a fake name, and then tells her that he's getting a brain tumor removed, which he's not. He doesn't have a brain tumor. And he has a fantasy about shooting one of his friends. It's like a very vivid fantasy. So like these two books, and especially this one, I think kind of sets up what I'm going to discuss with you today. Because I think that, this whole movie really is from Wendy's perspective. I don't think her son has any special abilities. I think this is like in Catcher in the Rye. I think Wendy says these things. It's almost like Munchausen by proxy, right? She's saying that her son has the special gift that he doesn't have. Now, we don't know why she does this. It's never explained. But I think all these visual cues give us clues as to who the real killer is. Let's go ahead and get into this. All right, so we open up. Jack is heading up to the Overlook Hotel for a job interview. And I don't even know so much if it's an interview. It says the interview at the beginning of the movie. But I think this is more or less to just cement that he's going to be getting this job at the Overlook Hotel to be the caretaker during the winter season. It's 5 months that they'll be up there by themselves. So let's get into, I think, what is probably some of the most important scenes in this film. And like I said, we're going to do a step-by-step breakdown. So this is going to be pretty long because I'm going to show a lot of what's going on here. So it starts off with the interview.
Hi. I've got an appointment with Mr. All. My name's Jack Torrance.
His office is the first door left.
Thank you.
Now, right here is one of my critical things that I noticed after watching this, like I said, like 13, 14 times. Watch when Jack walks into the room, right here. So notice that painting that is in the inner office right here on the left. It is it's like purple and red. It's a famous Indian painting. And then there is a collage of pictures that are hung to the wall just to the right of the doorway opening. Look right there on the wall. There's no light switch. Okay. It's just a plain wall. This is very important because this is it comes up later in the movie, and so you'll see just it's a plain wall with these one painting, and then there's like 4 pictures hanging up. It's very important. So just put that in your memory bank for later.
Mr. Allman?
Yes?
I'm Jack Torrance.
Oh, well, come on in, Jack. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Allman.
This is my secretary, Susie.
Hello.
Susie, how do you do?
Have
So-
any trouble finding us?
So look at Mr. Ullman's desk. It's very clean, very uniformed. We can see where his secretary is standing right there. Everything's nice and organized. You can faintly make out, just a little bit of a red book right there, but just faintly. But his desk is pretty organized.
Oh, no problem at all. I made the trip in 3.5 hours.
Wow, that's a very good time. Hey, look pretty soon. Jack, just make yourself at home. Would you like some coffee?
Well, if you're gonna have some, I wouldn't mind. Thanks.
Susie? Sure. Oh, and would you ask Bill Watson to join us?
Yes, I will. Mom?
So Wendy's at home with Danny. They're having lunch or something like that, but Wendy's reading The Catcher in the Rye. So I think this is very important. I think this is one of the first clues, well, the second clue. So the light switch was the first clue. I think The Catcher in the Rye is the second clue. Because if you look above her, I mean, she has got books everywhere. I mean, this whole apartment throughout the movie is full of books. She could be reading any book. So why is she reading The Catcher in the Rye? And I think this is to set up, that a lot of this movie is about imagination, active imagination.
Going to the hotel, I bet? Now, come on, Tony. Don't be silly.
So here's the very first time we're seeing her son, Danny, is using his finger to talk. This is Tony, his invisible friend, his make-believe friend. My contention is that Danny doesn't have this. Like every kid has an imaginary friend, right? When you're a child, you're maybe you don't have friends, so you're creating somebody to play with, especially when you're playing alone. And that's what we're kind of led to believe, that this is just kind of his imaginary friend. Anytime Tony talks, so whenever Danny's using his finger, my contention is that this is Wendy. This is Wendy's way of saying things that she normally wouldn't say. Is she a bit of like a wallflower? Does she feel like she doesn't have any kind of say in what happens in her life or in her marriage? Again, this is the early 80s, so is there women's lib wasn't really that popular back then? I don't know. I'm just trying to say that, and I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. To me, and when you see this throughout the rest of the movie, I think whenever Danny's doing this, it's used for us as a visual cue that this is Wendy speaking. Because she says, hey, isn't it going to be great to go up to the Overlook Hotel? And Danny's like, well, I don't know. I could care less. I don't have a lot of friends here to play with. So just maybe being up in a big hotel and us having run of the mill of the place, or, having free roam of the place, that will be fun for him. But then Tony speaks up and says, I don't want to go. So it's a little confusing.
I don't want to go there, Mrs. Torrance.
Well, how come you don't want to go?
I just don't want to go.
Let's just wait and see. We're all going to have a real good time.
So right here, see this transition? So she says, we're all going to have a real good time. And so I think this is a hallucination. I think she's having one of her active daydreams, where she's wide awake, but is playing little movies in her head of things that she thinks are happening or are going to happen. And you see that in this transition shot because they're showing Wendy in the office. In a typical scene, you would like fade to black and then open back up, and now they're in this other place. But these transition shots where they overlap the frame, I think is showing us that this is one of Wendy's hallucinations.
Bill, I'd like you to meet Jack.
And of course, right here on Mr. Ullman's desk, turned to where we can see is this red book that everybody's talking about. So on the bridge, it says, on the spine, it actually says, red book. It doesn't say the red book. It just says red book. And this is obviously a paperback. And like I said, the hotel and motel registries were hardback books. You can look them up online. I, they're they're hard to find. I mean, nobody's really selling these. Who wants to buy like an old Yellow Pages? But those were hardback books, and this is a paperback. So could you just imagine that? You know, the prop master was like, I found this. Will this do? Because we can't actually get a hold of Carl Jung's Red Book. Like I said, it wasn't even published until 2009. So it's just a visual reference, right? That's what prop masters do in movies. If they can't get something, they'll make something that looks as much as they can, make it look like whatever they want it to look like. So, but it's turned. That's why I'm saying. So I mean, it's kind of is that why it's there? Because now look at Mr. Ullman's desk is kind of cluttered. They're having coffee. Everybody's getting comfortable with themselves.
Torrance.
How do you do? Bill, how do you do? Nice to meet you. Pleasure to meet you.
Grab a chair, Bill. Join in. Jack is going to take care of the overlook for us this winter. I'd like you to take him around the place as soon as we're through.
Fine.
Jack is a school teacher.
Formerly a school teacher.
What line of work are you in now?
I'm a writer. Teaching's been more or less a way of making ends meet.
Well, this ought to be quite a change for you.
Well, I'm looking for a change.
Our people in Denver recommended Jack very highly, and for once, I agree with them. Let's see, where were we? I was, about to explain that our season here runs from May 15th to October 30th. Then we close down completely until the following May.
Do you mind if I ask why you do that? It seems to me that the skiing up here would be fantastic.
Oh, it sure would be. The problem is the enormous cost it would be to keep the road to Sidewinder open. It's a 25-mile stretch of road. It gets an average of 20 feet of snow during the winter, and there's no way to make it economically feasible to keep it clear. When the place was built in 1907, there was very little interest in winter sports, and this site was chosen for its seclusion and scenic beauty.
Well, it's certainly got plenty of that.
That's right. Did they give you any idea in Denver about...
So now look at Mr. Ullman's desk. So see how the Red Book is now completely straight. The desk is a little bit more straightened, but the book is not turned. So one thing Stanley Kubrick doesn't do, he doesn't make mistakes. He is a perfectionist. Everything has a purpose. These aren't continuity issues, and you'll see throughout the movie that there is a lot of things going on, and it's to subvert your mind. Because right now, look at Jack. He's very, he's very pleasant. He doesn't seem like a man who's going to go off the rails. He seems very pleasurable, so, well, anyway, we'll get back into this.
what the job entails?
Only in a very general way.
Well, the winters can be fantastically cruel. The basic idea is to cope with the very costly damage and depreciation which can occur. And this consists mainly of running the boiler, heating different parts of the hotel on a daily rotating basis, repairing damage as it occurs, and doing repairs so that the elements can't get a foothold.
Well, that sounds fine to me.
Physically, it's not a very demanding job. The only thing that can get a bit trying up here during the winter is the tremendous sense of isolation.
Well, that just happens to be exactly what I'm looking for. I'm outlining a new writing project, and 5 months of peace is just what I want.
That's very good, Jack.
So again, here's another seed. Mr. Ullman is telling, Jack about the isolation, that it can get really bad up here.
Because for some people, solitude and isolation can of itself become a problem.
Not for me.
How about your wife and son? How do you think they'll take to it?
They'll love it.
Great. Well, before I turn you over to Bill, there's one other thing I think we We should talk about it. I don't want to sound melodramatic, but it's something that's been known to give a few people second thoughts about the job.
Now, here's like the big reveal throughout the movie, and like you start off by giving everything away, and this is the introduction of Mr. Charles Grady.
I'm intrigued.
I don't suppose they told you anything in Denver about the tragedy we had up here during the winter of 1970?
I don't believe they did.
Well, my predecessor in this job hired a man named Charles Grady as the winter caretaker. And he came up here with his wife and 2 little girls, I think about 8 and 10. And he had a good employment record, good references. And from what I've been told, I mean, he seemed like a completely normal individual. But at some point during the winter, he must have suffered some kind of a complete mental breakdown. He ran amok and killed his family with an axe. Stacked them neatly in one of the rooms of the West Wing, and then he put both barrels of a shotgun in his mouth. Police, I thought that it was what the old-timers used to call cabin fever. Kind of claustrophobic reaction, which can occur when people are shut in together over long periods of time.
Well, that is quite a story.
Yeah, it is. Oh, it's still hard for me to believe it actually happened here. But it did. And I think you can appreciate why I wanted to tell you about it.
I certainly can, and I also understand why your people in Denver left it for you to tell me.
Well, obviously, I mean, some people can be put off by the idea of staying alone in a place where something like that actually happened.
Well, you can rest assured, Mr. Ullman, that's not going to happen with me. And as far as my wife is concerned, I'm sure she'll be absolutely fascinated when I tell her about it. She's a confirmed ghost story and horror film addict.
Well, that's kind of important because throughout the rest of the movie, he never tells his wife anything about that story. So, did he do it off camera? You know, it's never shown to us in this movie, in any version of it, that he ever told his wife about Mr. Grady. But here again, look at these transitions, and now we're in Danny's bathroom. You know, we're in Danny's bedroom, going into Danny's bathroom. Pay particular attention to the door. You see some stickers on here. You got Snoopy and Woodstock and some other things going on. But Dopey, pay attention to Dopey on the door here.
Tony, do you think Dad'll get the job?
He already did. He's gonna phone Wendy up in a few minutes to tell her.
Here's another thing. So look on top of Wendy's refrigerator. There are 2 canisters of Kool-Aid. And again, you could have things anywhere in a movie. You know, if this is your set, you can place things anywhere. Having the detergent where you would have it, you know, she's washing dishes. You've got things on the refrigerator, with magnets and pictures. But, you know, above where you would normally keep your dry goods, you know, away from water and heat to keep them, you know, dry. On the top of the refrigerator, she has got 2 cans of Kool-Aid. This is very important.
Hello?
Hi, babe.
Hi, hon. How's it going?
Great. Look, I'm at the hotel and I still have an awful lot to go through. I don't think I could get home before 9 or 10.
Sounds like you got the job?
Right. It's a beautiful place. You and Danny are gonna love it.
Tony, why don't you want to go to the hotel? I don't know. You do too know. Now come on, tell me. don't want to. Please. No. Tony, tell me.
So when she's using Tony, this is again her active imagination. He says, I don't want to go. This isn't Danny. This is all Wendy. Like I said, I don't know, what her problem is. We don't know what her psychosis is. If she's bipolar, is she, manic depressive? Does she have schizophrenia? I just know that Wendy has something wrong with her. And she has a very active imagination that just goes to the worst places. So right now she's, envisioning pools of blood. And is this because she reads all these horror novels? Well, we only seen her reading Catcher in the Rye. So we don't know what all these other books are that are throughout her apartment. Could some of them be horror crime novels? I know the ladies sure love watching the IO, or what is it, the ID channel that has all these, unsolved mysteries and murders and things. So
Now hold your eyes still so I can see. That's good. Now the other one. Good boy. Now, Danny, when you were brushing your teeth, do you remember if you smelled anything funny, or saw any bright flashing lights, or anything at all strange?
So a couple of things right here in the scene to unpack. So we're led to believe that while Danny was brushing his teeth, he must have passed out. He must have fainted. Something traumatic happened enough for Wendy to call in a doctor, to come to their house. Not enough for her to rush him to the emergency room or, anything like that, or, a psychiatric clinic. Just have a doctor come over. He must have fainted or something. But look at the pillow that Danny's laying on. It's kind of a pillow teddy bear thing. Pay attention to the color of the bear. Pay attention to the color of the face. The brown bear with the yellow mouth. This is very important for later in the movie. Again, this is another seed. Stanley's planting all these seeds to help us unravel this mystery.
No.
Do you remember when you were brushing your teeth?
Yes.
What's the next thing you remember after you were brushing your teeth?
And I was saying, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Danny, wake up.
Now, this is a problem. And again, like we'll see this throughout the movie and later on, more importantly, Danny never passed out. It's my contention that Danny never passed out. He's wide awake. He's brushing his teeth. His mom is having one of her visions. She runs in there. Again, her mind going to the most worst places and having these wide awake nightmares, and is telling her son, wake up, when she's telling herself to wake up. Get out of this, fantasy, get out of this hallucination that she's having.
Danny, can you remember what you were doing just before you started brushing your teeth?
Talking to Tony.
Is Tony one of your animals?
No, he's a little boy that lives in my mouth.
Tony's his imaginary friend.
Oh. If you were to open your mouth now, could I see Tony?
No,
Why not?
because he hides
Where does he go?
in my stomach.
Does Tony ever tell you to do things?
I
don't want to talk about Tony anymore.
Okay. That's fine.
And I think the reason why is this kid's confused. He's like, I don't know why you're here. He's not old enough to kind of understand or figure out how to explain, why are you here? Why are you asking me these questions? I was just in there brushing my teeth. My mom ran in and said, wake up. I'm awake.
All right, Danny. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor and stay quietly in bed for the rest of the day, okay?
Oh, I have to?
Yes, I'd like you to.
We're just gonna go in the other room for a few minutes and talk. And I'll come back and check on you. Okay?
Okay.
Bye.
So here's how we know we're in reality versus where Wendy was having one of her, her daydreams or hallucinations or whatever you want to call them. She goes to go close the door, and what's missing? So we've got the Snoopy sticker, we've got above that the Woodstock sticker, but a sticker is missing. So, and this is very important. This is to show that this is reality because the Dopey sticker is now gone. And again, these are not continuity issues. This is all done to show us that earlier when we were seeing the camera perspective of, from behind where Danny's in the bathroom brushing his teeth, that this is one of Wendy's fantasies, one of her hallucinations. But now we're in reality because the sticker is completely gone, the Dopey sticker. And why is that kind of important? Because Dopey's, of all the characters in Snow White, has a intellectual disability. And Snow White, Happy even tells us that Dopey is simply unaware of whether or not he can speak. He simply never tried. So he just never had a voice. And does Wendy feel like she doesn't have a voice? Is that what he's showing us? Is this one of these seeds that he's planting, Kubrick?
I don't think you have anything to worry about. I'm quite sure there's nothing physically wrong with Danny.
Yeah? Oh. Yeah, he seems absolutely fine now. But you should have seen him.
I know. Kids can scare you to death. But believe me, these episodes are not at all uncommon. And they look much worse than they are.
But, what was the matter with him?
Mrs. Torrance, most of the time, these episodes with kids are never explained. They're brought on by emotional factors, and they rarely occur again. They're more akin to auto-hypnosis, a kind of self-induced trance. If it reoccurs, which I doubt, we can always think about having some tests done.
So again, this auto hypnotic trance. This is their way of saying, this active imagination. And this is what Jung talks about in the Red Book. And so this is Wendy. Wendy is having these auto hypnotic trances. She's the one who's, fantasizing all these things.
No, thank you.
Oh, I'm sure you're right.
So they never explained to us, what's going on with Danny, because there's nothing going on with Danny.
Have you been in Boulder long, Mrs. Torrance?
Only about 3 months. We're from Vermont. My husband was teaching school there.
Did the appearance of Danny's imaginary friend,
Tony.
did Tony's first appearance happen to coincide with your arrival here?
No. Let's see. I guess Danny started talking to Tony about the time we put him in nursery school.
Did he adjust well to school?
No. He didn't like it too much at first. And then he had an injury, so we kept him out for a while. And yeah, I guess that's about the time when I first noticed that he was talking to Tony.
What sort of injury did he have?
He dislocated his shoulder.
How did he manage to do that?
Well, it was just one of those things, purely an accident. My husband had been drinking, and he came home about 3 hours late. So he wasn't exactly in the greatest mood that night. And, well, Danny had scattered some of his school papers all over the room, and my husband grabbed his arm, to pull him away from him. It's just the sort of thing you do 100 times with a child, in the park or in the streets. But on this particular occasion, my husband just used too much strength, and he injured Danny's arm.
So now again, we planted another seed. Now it's more towards Jack, right? We're setting up the fact that this guy, he's used to drink. He's got a drinking problem. He's kind of abusive, has a short temper, dislocated his son's shoulder.
Anyway, something good did come out of it all, because he said, Wendy, I'm never going to touch another drop. And if I do, you can leave me. And he didn't. And he hasn't had any alcohol in 5 months.
So the Torrance family is on their way up to the mountains, and they're checking into the hotel.
What time's the plane leave?
8:30.
Well, that still gives us plenty of time to go over everything first.
You can see they're closing down. Mr. Ullman kind of explains everything here, but all the employees that are still there are moving furniture away. They're packing things up that aren't needed during the winter season. But pay very careful attention to what is going on behind Jack. They've driven up in their little yellow Volkswagen with all their belongings, and behind them is all of their luggage and Danny's big wheel bike.
Bye, Mr. Ullman.
Bye. Good morning, Jack. Hope you haven't been waiting too long.
So we can clearly see right behind Jack is all of his luggage and a big wheel, right? It's one of these 3-wheel bikes, little like bikes that came out in the late 60s, early 70s. And it is got a blue seat with a white frame with a basket on the front of it and a bell on each handle. So there's a bell on the left handle and a bell on the right handle. And this is Danny's bike. This is very important. If you've ever seen clips or trailers or photos from this movie, this bike is pretty iconic, and you'll see why. We know a lot of these things are Wendy's active imagination, because like I said, you can clearly see this isn't the light casting, bright light on the bike and making the red on the bike seem white. No, this bike has a white frame, with silver handlebars and bells on each handle and a basket on the front of it.
No problem. In fact, we had time to grab a bite to eat.
Good. Glad you made it before they shut down the kitchen. Is your family having a look around?
No, my son's discovered the games room.
Oh. Has your luggage been brought in?
Right there.
Oh, fine. Well,
And he
you'll
points
all
out,
around
that's
the
our stuff right
today. I
there.
suggest we go have a quick look at your apartment and then get started straight away. Bill, would you have the Torrances' things brought to their apartments?
Fine. I better collect my family first.
Oh. This is our Colorado lounge.
Oh, it's beautiful. My God. This place is fantastic, isn't it, hon?
Sure is.
God, I've never seen anything like this before. Are all these...
Now, again, pay attention to this room. This is the Colorado room. This is probably one of the most important rooms in this whole movie. This long desk that you see to the right of picture right here, which looks more like a large banquet desk or table, is where Jack will be doing all of his typing and writing. Notice in front of that, there is a sofa, with lamps on each side of it, a little coffee table in the middle of that. So pay attention to all the furniture in this room.
These Indian designs authentic?
Yeah, I believe the base.
Now we've got a janitor here who's just kind of vacuuming, and he's moving furniture just to vacuum and clean up or polish the floor. And then he is moving things back. But here is another large table surrounded by a bunch of lamps with a giant wood sculpture in the middle of it. Again, just remember these things,
Mainly on Navajo and Apache motifs.
Oh, well, they're really gorgeous. As a matter of fact, this is probably the most gorgeous hotel I've ever seen.
Oh, this whole place has had
Now we've got, here's another worker who's like got carpet over his shoulder. So, like I said, they're putting some things away. They're not putting everything away for the wintertime. You just see a lot of people cleaning, polishing things. They're not removing things, but just here and there, we get little tidbits of that. Yeah, they're moving some things.
an illustrious past. In its heyday, it was one of the stopping places for the jet set, even before anybody knew what a jet set was. We had 4 presidents who stayed here. Lots of movie stars.
Royalty?
All the best people.
So now, they're getting ready to, they're being shown their quarters. Danny's, left to himself in the game room and he's playing.
This is the staff wing of the hotel. None of the other bedrooms are heated during the winter.
Oh, goodbye, Miss.
We just saw that, and I've skipped forward a little bit, sorry, but we just saw where Danny's in the game room playing darts, and he turns around and he sees again the twin girls, which I don't know why they're twins, and otherwise, unless it's just Wendy's active imagination, because we were told that Mr. Grady's kids were 8 and 10 years old, so that's 2 years apart. So if this is the Grady twins, one would be a little bit taller than the other, would look a lot different, compared to the other girl, where these 2 girls throughout this movie look like twins. So with Wendy's mind, she's creating things. She doesn't have all the information. So her visions have glitches. Remember like the Matrix, they talked about the glitches. If you see the black cat, there's something wrong with the software. Or if you see it twice, right, the deja vu thing. But they're going in and he's showing them their living quarters, here on the property.
Mr. Ullman.
Goodbye, girls. And here are your quarters. Living.
And again, very important. So look where Mr. Ullman is. Look where Jack and Wendy are. This is like the foyer entrance, to their living quarters. Pay attention to the ceiling. There's no light fixtures. Again, this is very important for later in the film.
Room, bedroom, bathroom, and a small bedroom for your son.
There's Danny's room.
Perfect for a child.
Yeah.
Yes.
So here we see their bedroom, and you can see they showed the bed, and there's an end table that is next to the bed. This is, again, another important seed.
Place is very nicely, easy to keep.
Cozy.
Yes, very cozy.
So right in front of Jack is an end table with no lamp on it, just an end table right in front of their bed, or right next to their bed.
For a family. And if you feel like spreading out, you have the rest of the hotel to move around in.
Well, it's very, homey.
Yeah.
This is our famous hedge maze. It's quite an attraction around here. The walls are 13 feet high, and the hedge is about as old as the hotel itself. It's a lot of fun, but I wouldn't want to go in there unless I had an hour to spare to find my way out.
When was the Overlook built?
Construction started in 1907. It was finished in 1909. The site is supposed to be located on an Indian burial ground, and I believe they actually had to repel a few Indian attacks as they were building it. That's our snowcat. Can you both drive a car?
Yes.
That's fine. Because basically, the snowcat operates very much like a car, and it won't take you long to get the hang of it. As a matter of fact,
So the snowcat is looks like it's in front of a garage. It's not in the garage. It's outside of the garage. These are like a giant snowmobile slash car for the wintertime. It's kind of important again in the very end of the movie. But him, talking about the maze, he doesn't give a lot of details about the maze, the manager, other than it's just a, a hedge maze. And, you wouldn't want to go in there unless you had a lot of time to kill. Time to kill.
We brought a decorator in from Chicago just last year to refurbish this part of the hotel.
Oh, well, he sure did a beautiful job. Pink and gold are my favorite colors.
Ah, well, this is our gold ballroom.
Oh, I'll say.
We can accommodate up to 300 people here very comfortably.
Boy, I bet you we could really...
So, Jack has probably already gotten this grand tour already. That's why he's not doing a whole lot of talking, right? You can imagine during the interview, surely this isn't the first time he's seeing the whole property, but he's showing his wife around, Wendy, so she also has, kind of a general idea of what's going on.
really have a good party in this room, huh, hon?
I'm afraid you're not going to do it unless you brought your own supplies. We always remove all the booze from the premises when we shut down. That reduces the insurance we normally have to carry.
So they remove all the liquor in the hotel from the premises, off property. They don't just store it away, box it up or anything like that. They actually remove it from the property.
We don't drink. Well, then you're in luck. Oh, Dick, come on over and say hello to Mr. and Mrs. Torrance. Sure.
And here we get to meet one of the most iconic voices of the 70s and 80s, Scatman Crothers, who plays Mr. Halloran, who's the chef here at the hotel.
This is Dick Halloran, our head chef.
Mr. Halloran, I'm Jack.
Nice to meet
This
you,
is
Jack.
my wife, Winifred.
Nice to meet you,
Nice to meet you.
The Torrances are going to take care of the overlook for us this winter.
Oh, that's just great. How do you folks like our hotel so far?
Oh, it's just wonderful. Hi, Danny. I found him outside looking for you.
Dan, did you get tired of bombing the universe?
Yeah. Come on over here. Thanks.
Thank you, Susie.
Now, does this like a kid who's terrified that he's just seen two twin, dead girls who supposedly have been dead? You'd have been running, looking for your mom, screaming your head off at that age. If you just saw, two dead girls, the ghosts of two dead girls.
Dick, if you're ready to do it now, I think it'd be a good idea if you could show Mrs. Torrance the kitchen while I continue on with Jack.
It'd be a pleasure. Right this way, Mrs. Torrance.
Great. See you later, hon.
Bye, darling.
Mrs. Torrance, your husband introduced you as Winifred. Now, are you a Winnie or a Freddie?
I'm a Wendy.
Oh, Wendy, that's nice. That's the prettiest.
God, this is the kitchen, huh?
Yeah, this is it. How do you like it, Danny? Is it big enough for you?
Yeah, it's the biggest place I've ever seen.
Yeah, this whole place is such an enormous maze. I feel like I'll have to leave a trail of breadcrumbs every time I come in.
So right here, that line, I'm going to need to leave a trail of breadcrumbs. Is that what Stanley has done so far? Is he leaving us trails of breadcrumbs to understand that what we think is not what we're actually seeing?
Don't let it get you down, Mrs. Torrance. Big, but it still ain't nothing but a kitchen. And a lot of this stuff you'll never have to touch.
I wouldn't know what to do with it if I did.
Well, one thing for sure, you don't have to worry about food because you folks can eat up here a whole year and never have the same menu twice. Now, right here is our walk-in freezer. Now, this is where we keep all of our meat. You got 15 rib roasts, 30 10-pound bags of hamburger. We got 12 turkeys, about 40 chickens, 50 sirloin steaks, 2 dozen of pork roasts, and 20 legs of lamb. You like lamb, Doc?
No,
You don't? Well, what's your favorite food, then?
French fries and ketchup.
Well, I think we can manage that, too, Doc. Come along now, watch your step.
So he a lot of kids probably don't like lamb. I remember when I was that age, I wasn't a big fan. Of course, French fries and ketchup. Why this is important, and we'll see in the next scene or a few scenes, why this is important. That he does not know that this kid does not like lamb, and he doesn't know what his favorite food is.
Step.
And who would, right? How would you know somebody? You just met this person.
Mr. Halloran. How'd you know we call him Doc?
Beg pardon?
Doc. You called Danny Doc twice just now.
I did?
Yeah. We call him Doc.
So, you see Mr. Halloran's shock? I call them Doc. Well, yeah, you called it to him twice. I did. I think he never said that. I think this is one of her, hallucinations. She hallucinated, in her active imagination that, he called him Doc because he's actually shocked. I did, you know.
Doc sometimes, like in the Bugs Bunny cartoons. But how did you know that?
Well, I guess I probably heard you call him that.
Well, it's possible, but I
And he's being polite.
honestly don't remember calling him that since we've been with you.
All right, we're getting ready to walk in the pantry. Again, this is very important. Look at the light switches right behind Mr. Halloran. Look at everything that's happening in the room. From the sign where it says manager's office, you can just barely make out manager's office. The clock, the knives on the background, the cork board. But they're getting ready to walk into the dry pantry storage. There's only one entrance for this room, is in and out of this, double locked door. But look at the light switches. There's a giant box right as soon as you walk in, and then there's a wired box. You can actually see the cable running up, right, which is actually right behind Mr. Halloran's shoulder. So there's two sets of light switches.
You.
Well, anyway, he looks like a doc, doesn't he? Yeah. What's up, Doc? Now, this is the storeroom. In here, Mrs. Torrance, is where we keep all the dry goods and the canned goods. We got canned fruits and vegetables, canned fish and meats, hot and cold cereals, Post Toasters, corn flakes, sugar puffs, Rice Krispies, oatmeal, wheat, bean, and cream of wheat. You got a dozen jugs of black molasses. We got 60 boxes of dried milk, 30 12-pound bags of sugar.
All right. So now we've just walked in the door and they've went to their left and stopped right there. They haven't gone any further in. They're just standing, just inside of the entry of the storage pantry. And right above Mr. Halloran's head, we see a couple of canisters of Kool-Aid next to a couple of canisters of Tang. And again, these might seem like little trivial things, but they're very important because I think this is at this time when we start hearing this music playing, and it's this weird sound. It's almost like a tone that might disorient you. So is this, because this camera perspective, is this another one of Wendy's hallucinations? She's hallucinating. Yeah, that's probably where I'd put my Kool-Aid, up high right there.
How'd you like some ice cream, Doc?
And now we're explained the shine, right? That Mr. Halloran has this gift to be able to talk to Danny or random people just using his mind.
Sociables, angle rolls, and 7 kinds of what have you. Now we got dried peaches, dried apricots, dried raisins, and
Now, see how, like I said, they were literally right there. They didn't go like well deep into the pantry. So they just walked about 3 feet in from the main entrance, or the only entrance, and are getting ready to walk back out again.
prunes. You know, Mrs. Torrance,
Now, see, this is why this is important, because now we're looking right back in there to the pantry, and you can see the canisters of Tang, no Kool-Aid. So while they were standing in there, she was having another one of her hallucinations, and now we're kind of back to reality. Look at where the light switch is. They're leaving the storage
you
pantry.
gotta keep regular if you want to be happy.
Hi.
Hi.
How you getting on?
Just fine.
Dick, can we borrow Mrs. Torrance for a few minutes? We're on our way through to the basement. I promise we won't keep her very long.
No problem, Mr. Oven. I was just getting to the ice cream. You like ice cream, Doc?
Yeah.
I thought you did. You folks don't mind if I give Danny some ice cream while I've been waiting for you?
Not at all.
No, we don't mind.
Good.
Sound good to you, Doc?
Yeah.
Okay, you behave yourself.
Now, what kind of ice cream do you like, Doc?
Chocolate.
Chocolate it shall be. Come on, son.
And he doesn't know his favorite flavor of ice cream.
It's amazing.
It's shiny. remember. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? I can remember when I was a little boy, my grandmother and I could hold conversations entirely without ever opening our mouths.
So, what strange man who's never met a kid, explains, and they, have this little conversation about his ability to shine, and that Danny has this ability to shine, to be able to mind read, like some form of ESP. So, if this is the case, if Danny, obviously from what we see in Danny's perspective, is that he heard him ask him for ice cream when they were in the pantry, and he's trying to explain like, you have it because you understood what I said to you in there, so now I know you have it. And again, I think this is one of Wendy's hallucinations. I don't think Mr. Halloran has the shine. I don't think Danny has the shine. I don't think there is a shine. I don't think there's any, I don't think any one of these people has this gift or ability. I think this is one of Wendy's, again, fantasies that, that Mr. Halloran and her son can communicate with each other. Because what random person would just say some of the things that Mr. Halloran says to Danny, while he's, giving him ice cream, and he essentially tells him a horror story, like who does that to a stranger, that you literally just met? Did Mr. Halloran maybe, give him, feeding him ice cream while they're going on with the rest of their tour? You typically wouldn't do that as a parent. You wouldn't leave your child with a complete stranger that you just met. He would go on the rest of the tour with you. But even if he did, let's just say, just for the sake of argument, that they're still in the kitchen and he's just giving him ice cream and that's it. No muss, no fuss. Maybe he's asking him what his favorite shows are. Does he like cartoons? What are the, maybe he's telling him some of the fun things that there are to do there at the hotel, the kids might like. But this whole thing about this ability to just shine, I think is one of Wendy's, maybe this is setting up that she's got multiple personalities, that she has complete conversations with herself, not with anybody else, only with herself.
She called it shining. And for a long time, I thought it was just the two of us that had the shine to us. Just like you probably thought you was the only one. But there are other folks, though mostly they don't know it or don't believe it. How long have you been able to do it?
You can see Danny's looking at him like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. So, is this Danny just, just sitting there eating a bowl of ice cream? And this is Wendy's hallucination where like she has having these whole conversations. So we're seeing different perspectives because, he looks literally bewildered. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Why don't you want to talk about it?
And then we do a change of frame to a zoom in. And like, again, like this is now part of her fantasy or just continuing fantasy.
I'm not supposed to.
Who said you ain't supposed to?
Tony.
Who's Tony?
Tony is a little boy that loves my mouth.
Well, and he hides in his stomach, right? So is it his mouth? Is it his stomach? Which one is it?
Is Tony the one that tells you things?
Yes.
How does he tell you things?
It's like I go to sleep and he shows me things.
Right. So again, because he's telling him everything that he would not tell the doctor. I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it. The doctor asked him about Tony and it was, I don't want to talk about Tony. Yet here he's with a complete stranger who he never met. What, he bribed him with ice cream and he's spilling his guts? So, or is this Wendy telling us, you know, because he's saying that it's like when I go to sleep, right? So, but he's wide awake when he's having these. This is part, like, again, part of Jung's active imagination, where you're wide awake, and in your mind, you're having these whole movies, these entire conversations of things that are happening around you. So, I think this whole thing of the shine is, nobody, I don't think anybody in this movie has this ability. They're just kind of trying to show us, how can I explain Wendy's active imagination?
But when I wake up, I can't remember everything.
Does your mom and dad know about Tony?
Yes.
Do they know he tells you things?
No, Tony told me never to tell him.
Right, because when the doctor asked him, if Tony tells you things, he's like, I don't want to talk about it. But now with this total stranger, I'll tell you anything you want to know. So this kind of goes on where they're just kind of having this random conversation, and the kid's asking him, are you scared of the place? And you know and Mr. Halloran's like, no, there's nothing going on here, there's nothing wrong with this place. So, like, again, we have mixed things between fantasy and reality. So where Wendy is maybe, like I said, she's talking through Danny for us, the viewer, when she's saying some of the things that she's saying. And Mr. Halloran's like, there's nothing going on here, there's nothing to be afraid of. So again, just all part of her active imagination. So everybody's gone, everybody's left, and it's 1 month later. Now, Wendy's been in the kitchen. We don't see this, but she's coming from the kitchen with breakfast for Jack. She's walking through the hallways and corridors. Pay attention to this door that she's walking into. This takes you through the lobby. Look at the red sofas that line the walls. This is important for the very end of the movie. But just remember this furniture, that we're seeing this. So there are a couple of red sofas, and right across from these double door entry into the main lobby of the hotel is this red sofa right here to the right, directly across from this doorway. So look at all the furniture. Pay attention to all the furniture, like I said, in this room. This is the main lobby. It's not covered up. It's just all there. Everything is there. All right. So now Danny's on his big wheel, and it has got a red frame. The bell on the left handle is missing. And like I said, the whole bike, its frame is red. It's not white anymore. There's no basket on the front. There's only one bell on the right, no bell on the left. So I think this is one of her hallucinations.
Good morning, hon. Your breakfast is ready.
What time is it?
It's about 11:30.
11:30. Jesus.
I guess we've been staying up too late.
I know it.
I made them just the way you like them, sunny side up.
Oh, nice.
It's really pretty outside. How about taking me for a walk after you finish your breakfast?
Well, I suppose I ought to try to do some writing first.
Any ideas yet?
Lots of ideas. No good ones.
Well, something will come.
So everybody seems to be getting along. Jack's happy, Wendy's happy, Danny's happy, everybody's fine. It's been a month, where they were up there for 5 months is the time they're supposed to stay there. But so far, a month, no problems, no muss, no fuss, right? And she's bringing Jack breakfast in bed every morning, apparently. So, I mean, he's living high on the hog.
It's just a matter of settling back into the habit of writing every day.
That's all it is.
It's really nice up here, isn't it?
I love it. I really do. I've never been this happy or comfortable anywhere.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast you get used to such a big place. I tell you, when we first came up here, I thought it was kind of scary.
I fell in love with it right away. When I came up here for my interview, it was as though I'd been here before.
And again, is this one of her hallucinations? Is she having this conversation with Jack, or is it a fantasy?
I mean, we all have moments of deja vu, but this was ridiculous. It was almost as though I knew what was going to be around every corner.
So look at this room, look at all the furniture. So Jack is apparently he's moved the sofa from in front of him, because remember it was backed up to his desk where he's working. It's the first time we see him all set up with the typewriter and everything. And things have changed, but the big wood sculpture is on top of the long table in the Colorado room. So that's there, but the sofa's, like been turned around and moved away from his desk. So maybe he did that because he wanted space or something. But like all the lamps are missing. And maybe he's just like, trying to get out some nervous energy, right, while he's having a little bit of a writer's block. But Danny and Wendy take a tour of the maze. I don't think this is really important. People talk about the sky inside of the maze, how there's no clouds, there's no light inside of the maze. I don't know if any of these things mean anything. I really think of the grand scheme of things, they don't. We know that this was some of it was filmed on location and some of it was filmed on a set in England, where I guess they reproduced the entire hotel in certain parts of the maze. So that could just be that, like when they filmed Star Wars, they weren't actually in outer space, on battleships and spaceships. So, some of the practical effects, and if this was any time during winter or something like that, you have your like Unit B production is filming certain things, while you're filming someplace elsewhere. So, the interior shots, are they all, in England, while some of these outside shots are in the summer or spring? Who knows? That's why I don't think them going into the maze has anything to do with the rest of the story.
There has to keep a mirror. I'm coming in close.
Because there's shadows there, and then there's something about people saying that there's not.
Yeah.
But like right here, like they're saying there's no shadows, there's no light at the top of the shrubs, and that there's no discernible sky. So I don't think a lot of this, leads to anything.
But they may have to call off the search if a predicted snowstorm moves in tomorrow.
But Wendy's in the kitchen. She's hearing a news story about all this terrible snow that's coming. Is this the onset of her fear? They've been up here for about a month. We at this point we're maybe a month and a day or something, a few days in. Is it starting to get to her? She's already had some issues in her life or something going on. And is the isolation really kicking in? And especially when she hears the news story of the weather that's coming in, this ominous weather, does it spook her even more?
Here in Denver today, it's hard to believe a snowstorm could be that close.
I know. I want to go outside and lay in the sun, yet to our north, to our west, it is snowing and cold, and it's moving right here towards Colorado right now as we talk. It's incredible.
And here again, Danny's riding his red now scooter, you know, his little red big wheel with only one bell on it and no basket. And I think this is, again, an hallucination. Danny's not actually riding randomly around the hotel. Because we're led to believe that there's this ominous room of 237. That is this the room where Mr. Grady, you know, stacked his family up, or whatever. Remember earlier we were told that this guy, the former caretaker, you know, chopped his wife and kids up and stacked them all up in a room. Did he put their bodies in room 237? So, you know, and again, whatever is happening in a lot of these scenes is just for film, right? To make the movie happen. But I'm trying to point out the things that are explaining why a lot of this is all in Wendy's mind, because here Danny clearly gets off the bike. We can see all of it now. It does have a red frame. There's one bell missing and there's no basket. So this is one of her hallucinations. So I think from the time where Wendy was in the kitchen and she heard the news story about the weather, I think she's really become spooked at this point. You know, again, maybe she, you know, like you said, that she loves horror books and horror stories. And so has she like creeped herself out so much that from that point, I think the rest of this movie going forward from that scene of her hearing this thing about the snow and the storm is the rest of the movie is almost all a hallucination. Because just look at the camera angle where we have the shot where it's shot from behind. The perspective is more like a fantasy. And you'll see Wendy come into the room. This is the Colorado room. And even listen to the music. It's that very dream, you know, that you would always, in any other movie, you would hear whenever somebody's having a dream when they're asleep. Listen to the music. But Jack's just sitting at his desk, working, typing, working on his project. Very calm.
Get a lot ready today?
So Wendy walks in, and again, this perspective shot is from her, right? This is one of her dreams. She probably leans in, kisses Jack.
Yeah.
Now, look behind Jack Nicholson and look at the chair. There's a chair behind him against the wall and a table.
Yes.
Hey.
So she kissed him, asked him if he was, you know, doing okay with his project. That all happened. She said, "Have you gotten a lot done?" And he looks up at her and he says, "Yes." And then we cut back to Wendy and she says, "Hey," as if the conversation is starting all over again.
Weather forecast said it's going to snow tonight.
Now we cut back to Jack and look behind him. The chair and table are gone. So we know this is her fantasy.
What do you want me to do about it?
And see, like he's kind of got this callous and cruel attitude towards her. You know, We've not seen in any time so far into this movie where Jack's been a jerk to her, that he's been mean to anybody. You know, he's just has been like a normal guy who he and his family are watching over this hotel during the wintertime. But this furniture is gone. So that tells me this is one of her fantasies, that he's being a jerk now because he's not done this. So he's, well, what do you want me to do about it?
Come on, hon. Don't be so grouchy.
Now, like this is happening. So now the furniture's back, you know, so she's having this conversation and maybe he's looking back up to her like, I'm not grouchy. I'm just working. Or is it that, you know, in this conversation, she's having glitches, you know, furniture's there, furniture's not there. It's her active imagination. Because when Wendy walked up, he pulled the paper out of the typewriter. I didn't show that. I'm sorry. But there's, when you watch this movie, you'll see he pulls the paper out of the typewriter. The paper's out of the typewriter now. So again, like this whole conversation is one of her hallucinations. So, and because of her mind, you know, not having control of everything, some things are appearing and disappearing just because of her active imagination.
I'm not being grouchy. I just want to finish my work.
Okay, I understand. I'll come back later on with a couple of sandwiches for you, and maybe you'll let me read something then.
Wendy, let me explain something to you. Whenever you come in here and interrupt me, you're breaking my concentration. You're distracting me. And it will then take me time to get back to where I was. Understand?
Yeah?
Fine. And we're gonna make a new rule.
So look at Jack, like his hair's out of place. He's running his fingers through his hair. He's kind of getting disheveled. He's very upset with Wendy. We're supposed to believe that this is what is happening, that he's just, you know, he belittles her at any given chance.
Where I'm in here, you hear me typing. Whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Now, do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Fine. Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
Okay.
So again, notice, you know, that right in front of Jack, you know, a minute ago, the giant the wood piece was on top of the long table, right in front of the stairwell. That's gone. So how much of this is like her imagination, her fantasy, things are appearing, disappearing. These are not continuity issues. Otherwise, this would be like the like worst movie ever as far as putting things in and out of things, that you forget things. Stanley Kubrick just would not allow this to happen. He's too much of a perfectionist. And on every movie, you have a continuity director. That is their job, is to make notes, take pictures of where things are. So when you are lighting the room and you're moving the cameras around, you remember this is where things are. Or might remember famously recently, what was it, Game of Thrones? There was like a Starbucks coffee on the table. And it's like, well, haha, that's just a bad continuity director, messed up that one scene. And this happens from time to time in movies where you'll see like one thing. Right now that we have 4K televisions, and you can see when you're watching older movies, especially like there's a car jumping another car, like Smokey and the Bandit, you can kind of see the ramps now, you know, where back when it was kind of grainy film, you didn't notice that. But these things have been digitally restored, and now you're seeing things that you not would have normally have not seen. And so you're seeing ramps and things like so. Those continuity issues, that's, you know, just going to happen when you're making something that's like 2 hours long or whatever. But it's like every once in a while, just like once during a movie. In most movies, nothing. You never have any issues. So in this movie so far, it is just, you know, left and right continuity issue. Or are these seeds, is this Kubrick is trying to tell us, this is when Wendy's having fantasies, when things are just not what they seem. Like, my contention is that Wendy walked up, kissed him on the cheek, maybe asked him how he was doing, and then from after that, she had that whole conversation by herself. Jack, was just might have been looking up at her, just dumbfounded, but like she's either having it in her mind or she's having it to herself and speaking his part back to herself. So she's saying her words and his words, maybe out loud or in her mind. Either way, this is one of her episodes. She's having one of these hallucinations. And you see that right here. Look at the look on Jack's face. Now, if his wife has a mental illness, or has any kind of issue with her mental fitness, is he compassionate? Is he loving? Is he caring and understanding enough to know that, if you've ever had anybody that's got any kind of illness, you work with them. If you love them, you work with them with their illnesses, and you're able to see, whenever they're having episodes, whether it just be physical health or mental health issues. Because the look on Jack's face right here isn't thank God she's gone, or, this bitch, whatever. This is Wendy just had another one of her episodes. She just literally came in here, kissed me on the cheek, and either didn't say anything or had a whole conversation to herself by herself, which is apparently what she does. One of these two things. And that's the look on his face, is that she's just, had another one of these episodes, because the paper's back in the typewriter. Like, he never stopped. He never ripped it out. He never tore it up. He never yelled at her. This is one of her delusions. The whole time he's just sitting there typing, because we never hear him reload it or anything like that. This is all to show that that was one of her hallucinations. Like, okay, moving on. He's literally right back to where he was before she walked in the room. So she's had another one of her episodes. So here's another important scene. So after that, we see Wendy and Danny outside playing. Now the snowcat is outside. So earlier in the movie, we saw it, and it was kind of parked halfway out of the garage. Wasn't in the garage. It was parked outside. But now it's way outside of the garage and closer towards the entrance of the hotel. It's been snowing. The snowstorm has come. We can see how much snow is actually piled up by the corners of the building. It is literally pushed up there. So we've never seen them drive the snowcat. We never see them drive the snowcat in the movie. Why would it be moved? Why would it be sitting right here, closer towards the entrance of the property?
Don't have no fair anymore.
And that look on Jack's face, right? So anytime we've ever seen this in trailers or movie posters or anything, right, this is just to more cement the whole idea in our minds that Jack is evil. And again, I would contend that from when she was in the kitchen opening up, the can of a fruit cocktail, that pretty much the rest of this movie is all in her head now. It's like she's lost it. She has snapped. Jack's fine. Danny's fine. Wendy's hallucinations are happening more frequently, and they're just more outrageous. So now look inside here. We're in the Colorado room again. And now the sofa that was in front of his desk, that was then turned around, because there was a sofa in front of his desk, and then it was turned around and facing him and pushed several feet away, is now completely gone. That sofa is completely gone, with the end tables on the long table next to the gold couch that we see at the bottom of the screen. was that giant wood piece. It was like a wood sculpture, is completely gone. So all the furniture in this room has almost, been completely altered. The lamps are gone from those tables. The lamp is gone from Jack's desk that he's been working on. He had a lamp sitting there. That's gone. When you're setting up and moving cameras around and changing the lighting for scenes, again, you're looking, okay, this was here, this was here. Hey, was the fireplace going? It was. Okay. And about how high was the fire? I mean, every detail. They'll add more wood or take less wood away, depending on what was the last scene, how big was the fire, right? How many times have you watched in a movie where, or a TV show, somebody's drinking a drink and maybe it's like half full, and then and they're talking, the camera's on that actor, and then when they turn around to get the other person's perspective, now that person's drink is full. Well, how did it just magically fill itself, right? So continuity direction, somebody didn't go, hey, no, we can't refill it all the way, because they've been sipping on it maybe during the scene, and we have to fill it back up because we're at a different camera angle. So when you're turning things around for perspective shots, oh, look at all the furniture that is missing from the scene. So again, these are just glitches in Wendy's mind. So Wendy's trying to make a phone call. This is the phone system back in the day. That's what phones used to look like in big hotels. The phone switchboard, and just anywhere back in the day when you had operators. That's what their switchboards used to look like. So it's down, right? There's a snowstorm. This always used to happen back in the day, where phones wouldn't be operable. But this again is kind of in the lobby area. This is where like the front desk would be, Mr. Ullman's office. So Wendy's trying the phones, they're not working. Is the isolation really kicking in? She can't call anybody, she can't talk to anybody. And again, Wendy's walking through the lobby, all the furniture's out, everything is fine. Directly behind her, look at those double doors. The red sofa that is right behind her is still there.
This is KDK-12 calling KDK-1. KDK-12 to KDK-1.
This is KDK-1. We're receiving you. Over.
Hi, this is Wendy Torrance at the Overlook Hotel.
Hi, how are you folks getting on up there? Over.
Oh, we're just fine. But our telephones don't seem to be doing too well. Are the lines down by any chance? Over.
Yes, quite a few of them are down due to the storm. Over.
Any chance of them being repaired soon? Over.
Well, I wouldn't like to say. Most winters, they stay that way until spring. Over.
Boy, this storm is really something, isn't it? Over.
Oh, yes, it's one of the worst we've had for years. Is there anything else we can do for you, Mrs. Torrance? Over.
I suppose not. Over.
Well, if you folks have any problems up there, just give us a call. And Mrs. Torrance, I think it might be a good idea if you leave your radio on all the time now. Over.
Okay, we'll do that. It was real nice talking to you. Bye. Over and out.
So, this is one of Kubrick's, attempts at a jump scare. So, Danny's riding around, and again, He's on his bike, only, it's not white, it is red, and it's no basket on the front, and the bell is missing from the left handle still. So this is why we know that these are all fantasies. These are all active imagination dreams. This isn't happening.
Hello, Danny. Whatever.
So, we saw that the bodies were hacked up of these two kids. And again, they're not twins, or these are twins. And we were told that they were 10 and 8 years old. But for some reason, they're twins, right? Because she doesn't have all the information. In fact, she probably doesn't have any of the information. A lot of this, is done just like I said, so the movie can happen. So we're giving visual references. But as far as we know, she doesn't know anything about Mr. Grady unless Jack told her off camera. But how we know that most of this isn't real and isn't happening, and that this is all just through Wendy's head, and these are all delusions, Danny is going to tell us.
Tony, I'm scared.
Remember.
Right, because Wendy is scared. The phone's not working. She feel the isolation is really kicking in. The snows, come in, so she's getting just her fear and paranoia is like kicking into full gear. So, right, she's scared, not Tony, not Danny. It's Wendy that's saying this. I'm scared.
Remember what Mr. Halloran said? It's just like pictures in a book, Danny. It isn't real.
It isn't real. None of this is real. None of this is happening. This is all in her mind.
Please, some money. I wouldn't think of it.
Pay close attention to this scene. This is movie magic.
Well, I'm gonna have some coffee. Would you like some?
So, when this movie came out in 1980, we didn't have cable television everywhere, like we do today, right? And everything's now like either Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, but this was like the very beginning of kind of cable television in the early 80s. A lot of places that were this rural, it's 25 miles away from the next town, had an antenna. So with the antenna, you still had something plugged into the television. If you had a rooftop antenna, you still had like a cable running into the TV that would run to the aerial to where you could receive signal. Or on a TV like this, you might have had rabbit ears that were still plugged into the TV, and you would have had like two metal antennas, popping up to receive reception. And again, right, they're isolated. They're 25 miles away from anything. It's 25 miles to get down Sidewinder to get to the closest town. That's why they close down in the wintertime. But there's no cables plugged into this television. There's no electric cable plugged into this television. There's no power going to this television. They didn't have battery operated TVs back in the day. You couldn't plug your TV in and charge it and then unplug it. There's nothing plugged into this TV from any angle. There's no shadow where people go, well, maybe it's plugged in from behind and we're not seeing it. You would still see a shadow of the cord, kind of draped behind it. This TV's not plugged in. Danny's, I'm sure the TV's there. In fact, the doors are probably even closed on the front of the hutch that it's sitting in. Danny's on the floor laying out, watching behind the television, watching it snow. That's my assertion, that Danny's watching it snow outside. That looks like his head is more framed in line with the windows than it is the television. His head's not slightly turned. It's more in line with the windows.
Sure. Great. Sit down.
So he's got a few toys, but he's going to be bored, and we get to that here in a second. But Wendy is watching the television. Like, she thinks that there's a show on. There's nothing on. This TV's not even plugged in. That shows how crazy her imagination has really gotten. I mean, she's just full blown now, into her psychosis. Because Danny wants a toy. He wants to go get his fire truck. So he begs and pleads with his mom for a few minutes, and she lets him go, but tells him to be quiet. His dad is sound asleep. Let him. He just went to sleep. Let him get his rest. So we see Danny entering into their apartment, and again, the music is always the dead giveaway, right? This ominous. Now, we know that this is a dream. Danny never went into their apartment. Danny's probably just still sitting out there with his mom. Might have asked for a toy, and she might have told him, no, your dad's asleep, and that's it, leave it alone. But she is having a fantasy that she let him go in to go get his fire truck. And again, you'll see all this when you watch the movie yourself. But he's in the room. Now look, Jack is wide awake. What's missing? The bedside table that's next to Jack. In fact, there's no room for it, and the bed didn't move because there was always, you see, to the lamp to the other side, and there's a table there. So these aren't, mistakes. This is to show you that this is one of these hallucinations.
At first.
So he tells Danny to come, sit next to him.
How's it going, Dad?
All right. Here's why we also know that this is one of Wendy's fantasies. Never throughout the movie so far, or throughout the rest of the movie, does Jack ever call Danny Doc. This is only a Wendy thing. Only Wendy calls him that. That is her pet name for him. Jack has never said this, not once, throughout the entire film. Not up until now, and not for the rest of the movie does he ever call him Doc. So we know that this is Wendy. This is one of her hallucinations. She thinks this whole upcoming conversation where he asks him, hey, do you like being here? Oh, I'd like to stay here forever. This is all Wendy. Wendy's either afraid that Jack wants to stay here, or, Wendy wants to stay here. So again, this is one of these, it's almost, some of these things you can pick how you feel about it. But this whole conversation that they have with each other, or that Jack is supposedly having with Danny, I think is all Wendy. This is one of her hallucinations. Maybe she's afraid, that Jack wants to stay there. Because remember at the beginning, when she brought him breakfast, he said, oh, I love it here. And he probably really does. Some people don't mind the isolation. I think that is Jack's situation, that he's just, he's doing his thing. Everything's going fine. But Wendy's having one of her episodes, is constantly having her episodes.
Okay.
Having a good time?
Yes, Dad.
Good. I want you to have a good time.
I am, Dad. Dad?
Yes?
Do you feel bad?
No. Just a little bit tired.
Then why don't you go to sleep?
I can't. I got too much to do.
Dad?
And so is this Wendy, like, can she not, get a good night's sleep while she's been here? Has Jack been so busy taking care of the hotel, making sure that the boiler room is working, checking on certain rooms? Is the heat on? Is it not on? Or, is he turning lights on and off throughout the property? This is a big place. And that's his job. He's the caretaker, so he should only be working on his book a little bit. Yeah, that's not the whole function of him being there. Why he got paid to do this job was to be the property manager, make sure things are functioning and working. That should consume the majority of his days, so he should be working on his book or whatever he's doing just a little bit, not because it feels like right now that that's 90% of what he's doing, right? Because we never see him walking around and working on things.
Do you like this hotel?
Yeah. I do. I love it. Don't you?
I guess so.
Good. I want you to like it here. I wish we could stay here forever, ever,
Like, that's Wendy's worst, nightmare, is that we would stay here forever and ever and ever. Jack seems to be having a grand old time. He loves this place. He's just, taking care of the place, and he's working on his book. Everything is just hunky dory for him. Yet I'm losing my fucking mind. Like, that's what's going on. These are all hallucinations. This conversation's not happening. Not between, Jack and Danny. Jack is sound asleep. Right? That's my contention. We're not seeing this. We're seeing one of Wendy's fantasies. This is one of her hallucinations.
Dad?
What?
You would never hurt Mom or me, would you?
Now we're playing up the whole thing about Jack hurting his arm again.
Did your mother ever say that to you? That I would hurt you?
No, Dad.
You sure?
Yes, Dad.
Right? Because let's just say, for argument's sake, that he did accidentally dislocate Danny's shoulder years ago, right? That this thing did happen. That he drank, came home, and Danny sprayed his papers around, and Jack grabbed him and dislocated his shoulder. Like, that was an accident. These things happen, right? That's what they say. That there's just this could happen to anybody. So did that happen? And she's never let him live that down. That from that time, that she never saw him in the same light. So in her mind's eye, he is just a monster. That's my contention, is that I think that's what's going on. She's just never forgiven him.
I love you, Danny. I love you more than anything else in the whole world. I would never do anything to hurt you. Never. You know that, don't you? Hmm?
Yes, Dad.
Like, that exaggerated behavior from Jack is brilliant in this, right? That's what we know him from. But throughout the rest of the movie, he's pretty calm. He's very subdued. It's only in Wendy's mind does, he do this thing with his eyebrows that he does. We've seen this in other films that he's done too, right? Because of this, it was, famous from this. But this whole demeanor, of arching his brows and kind of has that Joker menacing look on his face. This is her fantasies. These are just her active imagination. It's another pretty big scene that sparks a lot of controversy. Where did that little yellow ball just roll from? So Danny's in the hallway playing. Let's imagine that his mom is, in the hotel cleaning. She's got him nearby somewhere. Right? That's typical. That's what a mother would do. She would have her kid nearby. If this was the other side of the hotel, Jack's downstairs, she's upstairs, you wouldn't let your kid have free reign of the place. You'd have him nearby. So she is in one of these rooms, and Danny's just out there playing while she's maybe just making sure that everything is either working. She's checking the water faucets, making sure that the beds are, she's dusting or something like that, right? Because we've been here for like a month and something. So Danny's got his kind of toys spread out, and maybe his mom came out of one of the rooms and hey, your ball's in here, and she rolled it back to him. Like, keep your toys with you.
Mom? Mom?
And this is the famous Apollo sweater, right? And again, I'm not even going to talk about during this video, because that's not what we're focused on. And what I'm talking about, for any of you who don't know, there's the whole thing about whether Stanley Kubrick was hired by the government to fake the moon landing because he was such an amazing cinematographer. And with 2001 and how forward ahead in film that movie was, with the cinematography. So did they hire him? And the answer supposedly from Kubrick is this: yeah, I did it. I faked the moon landing. See, look at the Apollo sweater, right? A lot of kids had sweaters like this back in the day. Because like I said, this is 1980. So the space program, every kid wanted to be an astronaut. So that's a totally different conversation. But the way that Danny is calling for his mom is typical of how a kid, like, hey, mom, are you in there? This isn't ghosts. Like, mom, is it mom or is this ghosts? Like, it's Scooby-Doo. What's going on? No. He's like, hey, are you still in there? I've been playing. You might have walked into another room or walked down the hallway, and I don't want to be left out here alone by myself. So, mom, it's not like, oh, I'm waiting to hear if a ghost. A lot of people think that, right? Like this is where the ghost stories start coming in. Because if he was so scared of room 237, why is he playing right outside of it? Because guess what room this is? Room 237. And Stanley Kubrick tells us where we want to know who's in this room.
Mom, are you in there?
And Danny asks, Mom, are you in there? Stanley Kubrick tells us who's in this room with that transition right there. So he shows us that Wendy is, when you have that blended shot where we were walking into the room and now we're seeing Wendy just appear. Wendy was in that room. So we see her in the boiler room, and I think she's not in the boiler room. I don't think this is happening. I think this is a fantasy that she's in here just walking around with a clipboard, looking at things, pushing buttons. Why would she ever be in here? We've not seen her be any, mechanical at all, other than opening up a can of fruit. So this is Jack's job. Jack is the caretaker. Why, hey, Wendy, will you do my chores for me so I can work on my screenplay or my book or whatever he's working on? She's not in the boiler room. This is her active imagination. And she hears Jack starting to scream, and So, we're led to believe or that Jack is having a nightmare. And again, I think, like I said, almost all this movie from now on has been, all of her active imagination.
What happened? Honey, what's wrong? Jack?
The most terrible nightmare I ever had. It's the most horrible dream I ever had.
It's okay. It's okay now. Really.
Well, I dreamed that I killed you and Danny. But I didn't just kill you. I cut you up into little pieces. Oh, my God. I must be losing my mind.
Which is Wendy losing her mind.
Everything's gonna be all right. Come on, let's get up off the floor. It's okay. Honey, it's okay.
Danny, everything's okay. Just go play in your room for a while. Your dad's just got a headache. Danny, mind what I say. Go play in your room.
Let me just go get him out of here real quick, okay? I'll be right back.
Danny, why don't you mind me, huh? Danny.
Oh, my God.
Danny, what happened to your neck? Danny?
So be careful of or watching, make sure you're watching Danny's expressions. So we know that Danny was upstairs playing in room 237. We know that Wendy was in room 237. I don't think that she was ever in the boiler room running to go check on Jack. It was all part of her imagination. She was telling herself that she was in the boiler room. She was telling herself that Jack was having some nightmare. I think she was in the bedroom in room 237. She's obviously, you can see something has happened to Danny. Somebody has attacked him. I think she was in room 237. I think she attacked him, and I think she chased him out here into the Colorado room. We saw her running from the boiler room. I think she was running from 237, chasing him after he somehow got out and is now slipped out of her trance where she was abusing him. Again, we don't see that, but I think you will see that here in Danny's face.
What happened to your neck? Huh?
See, she's like, what happened to your neck? And look at the look on Danny's face. He's like, you did this. You literally just did this to me like a minute ago. Like, you crazy bitch. You did this to me. That's the look on his face. Isn't like, I don't want to say it was a ghost, or I don't want to say it was dad, because he's right there. No. The look on his face is, you did this to me. Can't believe you're standing here acting like, you just beat me and now like, oh, right. How many times have you ever gotten like spanked by your mom or dad, and then like a few minutes later, they're like, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't like doing that to you. That was the thing back in the 70s and 80s. Parents would paddle you, they would punish you. And then like a few minutes later, like love on you and like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, why'd you do it? That's what this scene is. She literally, was whatever she'd done to him to leave those marks on his neck and tear up his sweater, attacked him. So it was Wendy, not Jack, no ghosts, nothing like that. Wendy attacked him, and now she's like, trying to apologize. But her being in the boiler room and the whole thing about Jacking of a nightmare is her way of telling herself that it was, this is maybe him, that he's the root of all of her evil. That makes her feel better. That's a way to calm herself in her delusions. is to push the blame somewhere else. So whenever I do something wrong, I, push it off on somebody else that they did it. Even though I did it, I'm saying that they did it because it calms me. I think that's what Wendy's doing. Because, right, Jack has supposedly been sitting here typing and he's at his desk and he had this nightmare, maybe dozed off and had a nightmare, but there's no paper in the typewriter, right? So we know this is all part of, one of her delusions. The furniture is all gone, right? Again, the sofa now is, again, completely gone. The sculpture that was on the large table in front of the stairs, going up to upstairs is completely missing. So this is all part of her active imagination and fantasies. Like Jack's probably not even sitting at this, desk right here, right? That's just her mind. He's probably in the boiler room, maybe checking on things or checking on the property.
You did this to him, didn't you?
But see, now she's trying to deflect. So she's telling herself, like, I didn't do this, even though we all know that she did. At least that's my contention. So far up to this point, do you feel like that this has all been Wendy? We're led to believe from everything that we've known about this movie, since 1980, that Jack is this crazed, lunatic guy who just loses his mind and kills his family, just like the guy from before killed his family. That this is just, being perpetuated over and over and again. And like after these people leave, 20 years from now, somebody's going to come in and they're going to slaughter their family. This just randomly happens from time to time. No, there's no ghosts, right? We're led to believe by Mr. Ullman, again, these are little seeds planted by Kubrick, that this place was built on an Indian burial ground, right? So is that where we're in our head, we're getting these things of ghosts and hauntings? Because that's how Poltergeist was, right? That they built this whole neighborhood on a burial ground, and they didn't dig the people up. They just built the houses on top of them. They moved their headstones, and that's where all the ghosts and poltergeists come from. So is there kind of like this same thing where that's what you're led to believe so far? If you've not seen any of these other details, you might just think that this is one of these like supernatural, ghost story kind of movies with a little mix of, serial killer or something like that, crazed man.
You son of a bitch!
Because like if Jack is even really sitting there, right? So again, for sake of argument, I think a lot of this is in her imagination, but let's just say that Jack is sitting there again. So Danny's look on his face is like, you're doing this. And Jack, the look on his face is like, like I've been right here. You just came out of room 237 with him. This is you. You are nuts, woman. Like at this point in the movie, is he just like fed up? Like, listen, I know that when I married her, she had these problems. I knew that whatever, she had these mental issues or whatever. And just while we've been up here, it's been getting worse and worse and worse. I thought she would have loved it up here. Apparently I was wrong. This is really affecting her. That's the look on Jack's face. Is like, I don't know. I honestly don't know what the hell you're talking about. I've been right here. If that's the case, if the argument, just for the sake of argument, that Jack has been sitting there typing and working, that's the look on his face.
You did this to him, didn't you? How could you? How could you?
So I like this might be a point that's real, where Jack's like mad, like I was going to come up here. I thought this was all going to be fine. This was going to be great for us. I didn't think Wendy would have any of her episodes. I thought maybe it'd be good for her to get away. But now I think he might be pissed. Like he's gotten up from his desk. He's walking around to just blow off some steam. So I think that's what we're seeing right here is where he's just like, God, like, like I can't win for losing. I love her. I do everything I can. I'm here. I don't abandon her. I'm working through this with her, but she's like, I've had it. Right. I think that's one of these moments with Jack. And maybe he does feel this way. Maybe he's just exasperated. He's had it, like, or is this Wendy? Like, I think he probably did walk into this room just for some peace and quiet. Like, I've just got to get away. I think maybe he walked into the gold room, sat down, and that's it. He's just, walked in there to, collect his thoughts for a few minutes, you know. But for the movie to happen, a bunch of this other stuff, where he's hallucinating that there's a bartender there, all of a sudden a full bar of liquor shows up. He goes to reach into his wallet and he says, "Hey, I've got 2 10s and 2 20s sitting here burning a hole in my wallet." Yet then, when he goes to actually pull it out to pay for the liquor that this imaginary bartender gives him, his wallet's empty. And he says, "Lloyd, I'm running a little flush. How's my credit here?" Right? This is all Wendy's imagination. Why would you just say, "I've got cash," and then you pull out your wallet and you have no cash? Right? So these are glitches. This is Wendy's this is her mind. She doesn't have all the things, straight in her head because she's delusional. That's why furniture's, showing up and not showing up and moving and things like that. This is not bad, continuity. This is just, you know, things going, she's losing her mind. So, like I said, I think that he's been in there, just walked in there to blow off some steam. Wendy finally, is running around looking for him. Like, the way she finds Jack right now is, I think, the way that, like, he literally just, she walked up the stairs to put Danny down, and Jack walked into the gold room to just kind of get away and just blow off some steam and have like a minute to himself. During that time, she, put Danny down, grabbed a baseball bat, and ran downstairs. So he's not been in here long. As we're supposed to believe that he's been in here for like maybe, I don't know, an hour having this deep conversation with this bartender, about how nuts his wife is. And again, when you watch the movie, which again, I suggest you do, you'll see all these things.
God, you're here. Jack, there's someone else in the hotel with us. There's a crazy woman in one of the rooms.
Yeah, it's you. So this is one of these things where it's one of these moments. And when you look at Jack and you hear his thing, Jack, I think, like I said, just walked in there, was blowing off steam, sat down. Like, literally a few minutes after he walked in, she comes running in. "Jack, there's somebody else in here in the hotel with us. There's a crazy woman." "Yeah, Wendy, Wendy's the crazy woman. She's telling us that she's the crazy woman. She hurt her kid. She has these moments where she, has what the doctor said, these episodes where she like blanks out, but she's wide awake when she's doing them. So, like, it's just something takes over her mind, and she has these, active imagination, scenarios that play out in her head, and some she acts out on and some she doesn't. So, acting out on the one where she, abused Danny.
She tried to strangle Danny.
Are you out of your fucking mind?
And like, he's had it. I think that's where we're at right here. He's like, Wendy, you did this. I just saw you. Remember, you were in the Colorado room. You came from that area. You know, he's wide awake. He's alert. He's fine, but he is frustrated. You know, like, you abuse our son. And now you come in here telling me this fantastical story about how there's some crazy woman in the hotel with us. You know, it's 25 miles to the next town, but somehow either somebody's been hiding in here, or somebody snuck in, or it's ghosts. Or, using Occam's razor, is it Wendy? And my contention is, and a few others' contention is, that this whole time it's always been Wendy. It's never been Jack. But I've never seen anybody explain in all the details that gives you the reasons why it's always been Wendy. You know, like I said, there's been talk about the Red Book, but there's not been any talk about the Catcher in the Rye. I've heard some people talk about some of the things as far as like the bike. I did see one person talk about that, where it's obviously not the same one, so this is probably a hallucination. But there's still a lot to unravel here.
No! It's the truth, really. I swear it. Danny told me. He went up into one of the bedrooms. The door was open and he saw this crazy woman in the bathtub. She tried to strangle him.
Yeah, it was Wendy. Wendy tried to kill her kid. He must have snuck out. Because just look at, like I said, look at how calm he is. So next, what we see is Mr. Halloran is laying in his place in Miami, in his home in Miami. Remember, this is the chef from earlier, and he's supposedly shining and communicating with Wendy or Danny or somebody. But then we go to where Jack does go investigate. He goes into room 237. When he goes in there, there's a beautiful woman who's completely naked. He starts kissing her, and then sees a reflection in the mirror, and this beautiful woman, it turns into an old hag. Now, again, I think this is Wendy. She's afraid that her husband's going to leave her for another woman. And of course, she's a beautiful woman. That's where her imagination is taking her, that he's just, he's probably had it up to here with me. He just said, am I fucking crazy? So he knows that I'm losing my mind. And, so this is one of her fears, that he's going to leave her, that how's he even stuck with me this long? Right. And so, of course, he'll leave me for somebody who's prettier or whatever. That's her mind. But she calms herself and soothes herself with the hag that we then end up seeing, who's laughing at Jack like, ha, ha, ha. It's like, you're stuck with me, so this is what you get. Like, I know I'm a hot mess, but you're stuck with me. We've got a kid. I'm your wife, So I think that's what's happening in that scene. And I'm not going to show that because there's, some nudity but we know that Jack did go to that room. And while that's also happening, we're seeing flashes where Mr. Halloran is, for some reason, calling up there, asking, trying to call the hotel, can't get a hold of them, calls the fire service. And they say that the lines are down, which I think none of this is happening. I think Wendy is dreaming that, like, because Mr. Halloran can't shine, that he's going to come rescue her. That somebody, right? Because that's the only person that she kind of made a connection with, is that somebody's going to rescue her. So the movie can happen. We're seeing that Mr. Halloran is supposedly just, in his home in Miami, saw a news report of the snow and just thought to check on the family. Like, I don't think he had that kind of bond with them. Only met them briefly. So all that's happening. And so Jack does go investigate 237. And for somebody who just saw a ghost, what happens next is a little weird.
Call the operator.
So like I said, Mr. Halloran's trying to call up to the property, and the phone lines are down because of the weather. But so now Wendy's back in their apartment. We know that this is a real moment. This is not a fantasy. This is not a hallucination. The bedside table is back. You know, now there's a lamp on it. They probably moved the lamp. You know, just you've been there for a while. You're gonna add something. Maybe you want. Jack was reading at night, so we moved the lamp over there. But right now, I think we are kind of in reality right now.
Jack?
Yes, it's me.
Oh, thank God. Did you find anything?
No, nothing at all.
So that's what he went and looked, and there's nothing there because it was Wendy. He's very calm and subdued. I saw nothing. I didn't find a thing, you know. So if you'd have made out with a ghost, you know, and saw the hag that he sees, which if you've seen this movie, you know what I'm talking about, and if you haven't, you will when you watch it. He would have been running back to that room at 1,000,000 miles an hour, like, we got to pack our shit and go. But that doesn't happen. He just comes in and says, I didn't see anything. But from this point on, this is all a fantasy. This is all made up because remember in the very beginning, I was talking about how when they first walked into the apartment to pay attention to the ceiling, there was no light fixture there because that was in reality. This is still the same foyer. This is the same vantage point from walking, you know, into their quarters. And now there is a light fixture there. So this tells me that this is one of these. Now she's full blown on, just her psychosis is taken over. The episodes are just constant stream right now, that this whole thing is a fantasy.
Well, are you sure it was the right room? What about those bruises on his neck? Somebody did that.
See the look on Jack's face, you know, if this conversation is happening, you know, if they're really sitting there, Jack is like, you know, like, Wendy, you know, come on, honey. Like, this, we know this was you. Okay. That's the look on his face, this concern.
That to him?
I think he did it to himself.
Now, that's what Wendy wants. See, again, now Wendy's pushing the blame. So first it was Jack, and now she's saying, oh, well, maybe he did it to himself because it wasn't Jack. He knows, he's sitting right here. So again, a lot of this is in her mind.
That's not possible.
Like she's making excuses for herself.
Wendy, once you rule out his version of what happened, there is no other explanation, is there? It wouldn't be that different from the episode that he had before we came up here, would it?
That's alluding to earlier. Remember when the doctor showed up at their apartment where he was laying on the bear, and that's so again, you know, I think a lot of this conversation that we seeing back and forth with Jack and Wendy is her psychosis.
Jack, whatever the explanation is.
So Wendy says, whatever the explanation is. Well, here's the explanation. Murder. This is red rum, but backwards is murder. That's the explanation. Somebody's going to die.
I think we have to get Danny out of here.
Get him out of here?
Yes.
You mean just leave the hotel?
So I think this is the opposite. I think Jack wants to get him out of there, wants to get all of them out of there. Like, this isn't working out. You know, This is just getting worse and worse and worse. But there's this whole long rant about Jack going, I've got responsibilities. We can't just leave. Gosh, Wendy, you do this all the time. I think I've got things going my way. And his whole rant is what I call my me, my, and I rant, because it's all about Jack. And we've not seen that from this person at all so far. He would say, we, us, our, our family, like, Wendy, you're messing this up for us. But this is from Wendy's perspective and her delusions. So it's all about Jack, how, Wendy, you're fucking up everything that I do. This is my opportunity. So again, that's where I think it's from her perspective.
I could really write my own ticket if I went back to Boulder now, couldn't I? Shoveling out driveways, working a car wash. Would that appeal to you?
Jack.
Wendy, I have let you fuck up my life so far, but I am not gonna let you fuck this up.
And again, so I just don't think he's that mean. I think this is all from her perspective. So we're seeing again that, he's just kind of losing his mind. And again, this is hard to tell whether or not this is just her continued delusion, or did Jack walk out and he's just kind of frustrated. Again, he didn't berate her the way that we're seeing, but he's just still kind of trying to blow off steam and try to make sense of what's going on. Because, like, the phones are down. They can't just drive out of there. Does the snowcat even drive 25 miles? How far can they go on this thing? Like, hey, and also I did tell these people, I promised them that we'd do this. And, it's just like everything is also kind of unraveling for him too, but not to the way that the movie kind of shows that it does. Because we're led to believe that there's like this big party now. So what is there, ghosts or something?
Hello, my name is Dick Halloran. I'm the head chef up at the Overlook Hotel.
Good evening, Mr. Halloran. What can I do for you?
Sir, I've been trying to make an urgent phone call up there, but the operator said that the phone lines are down.
And again, this isn't happening. Mr. Halloran's not trying to call, and I'll explain my proof of that here in a little bit. But we're shown that, Mr. Halloran's like frantically trying to call. He's trying to call the hotel. The phone lines are down. He's calling the fire service. They tell him to, like, check back. We'll call up there, call back. I think Mr. Halloran never makes this phone call. This is one of her visions where, like, well, somebody will come rescue us because Jack's not going to do it. Jack wants to stay here forever. So we're all stuck here. But who's the closest person that we know that she knows is Mr. Halloran. And so she's just imagining that he's going to come save the day.
On your radio, just to see if everything's okay.
I'll be glad to do that, sir. Why don't you call me back in about 20 minutes?
Thank you very much. I'll do that.
All right, sir.
So when they hang up the phone, where we go back into the gold room, there's a huge soiree. There's a big party going on. Now Wendy's mind is just full into absolute insanity. Jack gets something spilled on him. The butler, who he calls Jeeves, takes him into the bathroom to help clean him up.
What do they call you around here, Jeevesy?
Grady, sir. Delbert Grady.
So Delbert Grady. Now remember, the man who killed his wife and kids is Charles Grady. So why is this Delbert Grady now? Again, this is all seeds. That nobody would mess up the continuity of this movie so much that we're just changing characters' names randomly, right? So why is it Delbert? Because she has, half the information. If Jack told her the story, maybe she misremembered the name. This is why this whole scene is an entire hallucination. He says, "Oh no, I'm Delbert Grady."
Grady?
Yes, sir.
Delbert Grady.
That's right, sir.
Right. And they're even emphasizing that Delbert. So it's not that you and I just misheard this, as casual viewers, Delbert, like, okay, did they mess that line up? No, no. Jack is saying Delbert. Yeah. And he says it again and again. So to emphasize, right, we're not talking about Charles Grady. This is Delbert Grady. So this is supposedly the same caretaker who killed his wife and kids. But because we have some of the information, because of her glitches in her mind, she's changed the name in her head. Just like the furniture was missing, light switches, things like that.
Mr. Grady, haven't I seen you somewhere before?
Why, no, sir. I don't believe so. Uh-huh. It's coming off now, sir.
Mr. Grady, weren't you once the caretaker here?
Why, no, sir. I don't believe so.
So we go on for quite a while, and then there's a few other scenes. Again, these they don't mean a whole lot of everything. It's just so the film can happen. But I think that he didn't go into the gold room. I think that whenever he left Wendy, when they just had their argument, where she's completely snapped, he realizes that she snapped. This is where he actually goes. I don't think he goes into the gold room.
KDK 1, calling KDK 12. Do you read me?
Okay. He's walking into the radio room, or Mr. Ullman's office. This, again, is part of her dream. I'm going to tell you what I think what happens versus what's really happening here. And why we know this is a dream is because just before Jack walks into this room.
Are you receiving me? This is KDK 1, calling KDK 12. KDK 1, calling KDK 12. Do you read me?
Right there. Remember in the very beginning of the movie when Jack walked into Mr. Ullman's office, there was just a painting on the wall.
KDK 12. KDK 1, calling KDK 12. Do you read me?
Pictures. So right before this, right where Jack is standing, and you'll see it when he walks by, there are light switches now. They weren't there earlier. So we know this painting, we know these pictures on this wall, and there was just that was it. There was nothing else in that room, right? This is the entrance to Mr. Ullman's office. But now there's light switches. So this is telling us this is from Wendy's fantasy. I think what's happening right now in real life is Jack is going in here. He's just left the apartment with Wendy. And I think he's got to call Mr. Ullman to say, like, hey, I'm sorry. Things just aren't working out. We can't stay here the whole 5 months. My daughter's lost her mind. In fact, she's even hurt our son. So we have to leave. You're going to have to find a replacement for us. Things aren't working out. I think that's what happens in real life in this movie. But this is Wendy's perspective, so we're shown something different. But right there's this light switch. So it just appears. So we know that this is one of Wendy's fantasies.
This is KDK 1, calling KDK 12. KDK 1, calling KDK 12. Are you receiving me? This is KDK 1, calling KDK 12. KDK 1, calling KDK 12. Do you read me? This is KDK 1, calling KDK 12. KDK 1, calling KDK 12. Are you receiving?
Fire service.
Hello, this is Dick Halloran again. I called a while ago about the folks at...
So again, all this, still in her mind. She's having these dreams that Mr. Halloran's calling the fire service. that Jack is, dismantled the radio because he wants us to stay here forever. And I think that is just all in her mind. So what we see next is that Mr. Halloran is on a plane. He's flying from Miami up to Colorado. He actually has landed at the airport in Colorado. He's calling a buddy of his who's a mechanic, and he says, "Hey, I need to get up there to the Overlook." And he explains to us why. Why does he, why is he flown up from Miami in the middle of this giant snowstorm?
Speaking.
Hi, Larry. This is Dick. Dick Halloran.
Dick, how you doing? How's the weather down there?
I'm not in Florida, Larry. I'm calling from Stapleton Airport.
What the hell you doing down there?
Well, I just got in from Miami, and I got to get up to the Overlook today. What's the weather like up there?
Well, the snowplows are keeping things moving in town, but the mountain roads are completely blocked.
That means I'm going to need a snowcat to get up there, Larry. Can you fix me up with one?
What's the big deal about getting up there today?
So this explains the whole thing. This explains all of it, I think, right? Because this, I think, is actually really happening. And Mr. Halloran tells us why we know that this has all been Wendy, right? Because we're told that somebody shined with him, whether it was her son or her, that he was going to come rescue them. Because he says, why is there such a rush to get up there? And he tells us why.
Especially in this kind of weather.
Larry, just between you and me, we got a very serious problem with the people who are taking care of the place. They turned out to be completely unreliable assholes. Ullman phoned me last night, and I'm supposed to go up there and find out if they have to be replaced.
So Ullman called me last night, the general manager, not the fire and rescue, nobody else, the manager. So can you imagine? So like I said, whenever Jack, I think, do you think he leaves Wendy, walks into the manager's office, calls on the phone or radio, maybe the phones work, who knows, and says, hey, things just aren't working out, or maybe gets message through the fire service, somehow gets hold of the manager, but like, we have to leave. Like, this is just too much. My wife's losing her mind. I'm sorry. And so then Mr. Ullman calls, the head chef, I don't know why not anybody else, but that's who he calls, and says, hey, can you get up there and take over until May? Like, these people just aren't working out. So, but he says that's how he knew, is that Mr. Ullman called. This wasn't using The Shining or any other thing. The manager called because Jack called the manager. So I think this pretty much explains everything. Because a lot of people were like, well, then how did Mr. Halloran know to get back up there? And when he got up there, what all happened?
How long is it going to take you to get up here?
Oh, about 5 hours. I'm going to rent a car here at the airport.
Okay, Dick, I'll take care of it.
Yes, Mrs. Torrance.
Okay.
Yes.
So in this scene, when you watch this movie, it's kind of funny because she thinks that just the worst things are going to start happening. And in fact, Stanley Kubrick tells us this with the song that's on whatever they're watching. So they're obviously watching. This is the late 70s television show, The Roadrunner, and the theme song that they used to play was a warning to the Roadrunner that the coyote's after him. And he says, but you better watch out because whenever he catches up to you, you'll be through. So does Danny think that Jack is the coyote, the wily coyote in her head, and he's coming after her, the fragile little bird? So again, just one of these little kind of seeds that Kubrick's planted on our heads, what's going on here. But Wendy's going to walk away and leave him, and she's going to go confront Jack. And again, like, look at all the furniture. Now everything is gone. Now just everything's almost barren in that room.
Jack?
So now she's back in the Colorado room, right? This is where Jack has been writing. All the furniture's missing. So we're led to believe that Jack has completely lost his mind, and all he's been typing this entire time is all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So we're led to believe that Jack has completely just lost his marbles. And he comes up from behind her and kind of confronts her and says, "Hey, do you like what you're reading? What do you think so far?" And they just there's a few minutes of dialogue where it's just like all this screaming back and forth at each other. Wendy's getting really scared. She wants to go home, but Jack follows her up the stairs, and this is where we're at now.
Stop swinging the bat. Put the bat down, Wendy.
So part of this is happening, so Jack might have been, like saying like, "Wendy, come on, like we've got to get it together. Hey, sweetie, like I know you're having these issues, but calm down. Like snap out of whatever is going on. Like it's one thing for you when you have these like little moments here and there, but like you are locked in now. She's completely off the rails. She's completely unhinged. We can see this from all the furniture from behind. Like I said, a lot of things are missing. These are cues to us, little subtle things. So some of this is happening, some of it's not. What we're seeing isn't happening at all, is my point. What's probably really happening is Jack's maybe following her up the stairs. She's swinging the bat, but he's like, "Hey, like, come on. Like, we're going to get you help. Like, we're going to pack. We're going to get out of here." He's probably trying to tell her the good news. But for the movie to happen, we need to see it like this.
Wendy, give me the bat. Give me the bat.
See, he's just acting completely crazy in her mind.
Stop swinging the bat. Give me the bat. Wendy, give me the bat. Give me the bat. Ah, God damn!
So he was probably, trying to get the bat away from her or getting her to put it down, but where he's like, just, he's acting crazy. I don't think that that's happening. I think this is, again, like her insanity or whatever was happening to her right now. But I think she hits him over the head. I think at this point right now, Jack's dead. Everything else from the rest of this movie is now completely hallucination and fantasy. She hit him over the head. He fell down the stairs and died. This is my assertion, and I'll get to why I think this. Because we see her dragging him, right? You see that he's awake. But she's dragging him to the dry storage room, not the meat locker, the dry storage room. Look behind her. Behind her is that corner office. That is the manager's office. Remember the clock on the wall, the cork board in the backdrop. That's where she is. She's walking into the dry pantry. Why I know that to me, she's not carrying him into the dry storages. There's no light switch. Remember in the very beginning when Scatman, Mr. Halloran was taking her into the dry storage room, there was two light switches. There was one, and then there's the one that's you can see kind of painted over where the cord is going up into the ceiling. That was kind of further away. So this is a fantasy. She's not putting him in this dry storage room. My contention is that she's dragging him somewhere, but it's to the maze. My contention is she killed him, hit him over the head, and she's dragging him out to the maze in the absolute snow and to die, if he's not dead already, but to die and to hide him. Because, like I said, this light switch is missing. So it tells me, to me, I think this is an hallucination. She's telling herself that she's, he's still alive. I just barely hit him.
What are you doing?
So she's locked him in this dry storage room. It's just a dry storage room. It's not a freezer. It's not super cold in there. It's just a dry storage room. Right. This is where all the canned, foods and vegetables and rice and all that are. So, it's not that cold. But this next conversation that happens right here is Wendy, like, she knows that she just killed her husband, but she's calming herself. She's soothing herself with more lies and deception and trying to point fingers.
What are you doing? Open the door! God damn it! Let me out of here!
Like, Jack's not talking. Like, he is, so the movie can happen, right? But he's dead. She's killed him. And she can't now. She's like, oh my God, I've really done it. That's when you look at her face, look at her expression, and just the few words that are coming up kind of say that.
Open the goddamn door! Wendy, listen. Let me out of here and I'll forget the whole goddamn thing. It'll be just like nothing ever happened.
Right. So she already realizes what she's done, and she's telling herself, like, oh no, he's fine. He's in there. He's alive. This is kind of like a do-over, right? Kind of like the Wile E. Coyote. Every time somebody, jumps off of a cliff or the anvil smacks somebody on the head, they show up in the next scene. So, but she's killed Jack. My assertion is that she's actually killed him and that she drug him out to the maze. And for those of you who've seen the movie, know why I think that. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, you will know why I say that I think that he's dead and why she drags him outside. So we're going to kind of go forward here a little bit, because Mr. Halloran is up here to come replace them. And a lot of this you need to watch if you haven't seen it. So I'm going to skip forward a little bit. But so we're led to believe that Jack is in the storage room. He has somehow gotten out, that a ghost has helped him get out, which again, I think didn't happen. He's dead outside in the maze. But this is where one of the most iconic scenes from the movie comes in. So look right here. She's opened up the bathroom window. You can barely see it. The snow is really almost up to the roof of the hotel from the snowdrift. And she is in the bathroom. You can see that's the only light that's on in the entire hotel. And she slides Danny out.
Wendy, I'm home.
So she slid Danny out of the window. Jack has finally come in. He's in the foyer. He's coming after them. Remember the coyote? He's after the roadrunner. When he catches you, you're through. So the chase is on from her mind. None of this is happening. She can't fit out the window because the window won't open up all the way. So she is, just in a super panic right now. But why? Because this is all a fantasy. Nothing's actually happening.
Come out, wherever you are.
And we also know, because this is we know that this is fantasy, because again, this is like I said in the very beginning, when they walk in the foyer of their living quarters, there's no light. So we know that this is a fantasy, because Jack is walking into the foyer, coming into the bedroom with the axe. And above Jack's head is a light fixture that wasn't there. So it's not there when it's, reality, but it's there whenever it's her mind. So these whole next few minutes of these scenes where this, pretty big dialogue, I'm going to leave it for you to watch, or you will remember if you've seen it. But we're led to believe that that Jack has, he got into a fight with his wife in the bathroom. She cut him, and he runs away because he hears something. And so at that point, Mr. Halloran has finally showed up, coming to save the day. Pay attention to this is one of the main entrances where he's getting ready to come into the front lobby. And pay attention to the pictures on the right on the wall, and pay attention to the furniture, the red sofas, and where he's getting ready to walk in. This is the same path that Wendy took when she was delivering breakfast at the early parts of the movie. So now Mr. Halloran is in the main lobby, but right behind him would be that red sofa and those pictures. So we're led to believe that Jack has now killed Mr. Halloran, because that's where he ran off to after Wendy hit him in the hand with a knife. And again, remember, Jack is dead. He's outside in the maze. Wendy's just kind of running around. Everything is coming to the high point. This is the crescendo or the climax of the film. But Wendy's walking around. She's making excuses in her head for things that are happening. Wendy's walking upstairs. She sees this bear who's having oral sex with a gentleman who apparently from the party, that we don't get to see a whole lot of. And how would Wendy know about that? These are all delusions in her mind. That party never happened. There's no big soiree. But that bear looks an awful lot like the bear that's on Danny's bed, right? Got the same yellow face, right? Danny's laying on the bed. He's got his pants pulled down when the nurse is with him. Why would a doctor do that, or a nurse? It's to foreshadow that in her mind, she's trying to explain to us that Jack has been sexually abusing Danny, right? She's making up stories. So like now she can explain why I killed my husband. I found him, molesting our child, right? So none of this has happened. This is just her delusions. So is Kubrick showing us that she's now even, she's made a few excuses, but now she's trying to figure out how to get out of this. Well, I had to kill him. He was molesting our son. So the rest of, so now we're like at parts where Jack has gone outside to the snow, supposedly going to go find Danny, who's run into the maze, which I think doesn't happen. And Wendy's kind of like walking around the hotel, and she sees ghosts for some reason. All of a sudden, it's the first time we kind of see ghosts, in the main lobby. Jack stalking Danny through the maze. But I think we end up finding out who the real killer is. Right here. Wendy killed Mr. Halloran. Look at the look on her face. She's got the knife in her hand. Look at the way she's holding it. framing this the way that they're doing this in this shot is to show us who the killer is. Even with the jump noise, it's not that she came around the corner and it's, oh, there's a body. No, it's I did it. And she's like, oh my God, I just killed another person. I killed my husband. Now I killed Mr. Halloran. Oh my God, she stabbed him. He didn't get hit with an axe by Jack. Jack's dead. She hit him over the head. He's outside. These are all delusions. Wendy killed her husband. She killed Mr. Halloran. She's just, God, you don't want to run up to her at any point right now because she'll probably kill you too. She's just, completely unhinged. Like, what did I do? That's what we're being shown. What did I do? So for the rest of this, we've got some more rivers of blood, the twins, this, that, and the other. Jack is running through the maze, supposedly chasing after Danny. Wendy and Danny finally get away, and we are left to see that this is one of the last scenes. That Danny has somehow deceived Jack and gotten out of the maze, and Jack is stuck in there. Again, I don't think this has happened. This 6-year-old kid, 7-year-old kid, 8-year-old kid, in this maze that he's only been in once, remembers so much. No, this is all in Wendy's fantasy. This is all in her head. So she drugged Jack out into the maze and left him like this, to say that, oh, he just maybe froze to death or something like that. But she hit him over the head instead of dragging him to the pantry, which were shown. Remember, because the light switches, it's all a fantasy. I think she drug him out to here because look at how high the snow is up on his shoulders. He's been up here for days. This isn't just like an hour or two or something like that. He's been up here, like, let's say maybe 1 or 2 days has happened since when she hit him over the head to the time that Mr. Halloran comes up and Jack calls to say, hey, we need to be replaced. So I think that's what's happened here. But so now I'm going to throw another curveball at you here. So we're in the lobby. It's the end of the movie. We're in the lobby and the camera is panning through. Why is all the furniture in the lobby covered? Why does it have coverings on it? Like, think of every scary movie you've ever seen, whether it's like Scooby-Doo cartoons or anything like that, or any of these old horror films when they go into an old abandoned house, how everything's covered, the chandeliers are covered, everything's got sheets on it and stuff like that, right? That's where we kind of get the ghost things from, because they're using the sheets to cover themselves, the ghosts are. But why is all the furniture in the lobby, which up until now has not been covered? Was it all a dream? Was all of it a dream? Did they ever even go to the Overlook? So that's a possibility. Or did Mr. Halloran go up there and they've had to like we have to completely close? So one of those two options. Either it's this, none of this happened. They never went to the Overlook. He was never the caretaker. Nothing ever happened. Or maybe she wasn't even married to a guy named Jack. So is that one way? Or is it that, that Mr. Halloran came up there, they had to get everybody out of there, and they just ended up having to close until May? Because, right, it's like 2 or 3 more months left at this point before spring season comes back around. But when you look at the end of the hallway, that's what I kept saying, that red sofa is now gone. That's underneath these pictures on this wall. It's just gone. So we get the pan through. We're coming in. And right there should be a red sofa underneath those pictures. That kind of haunting music. And so we see this, they zoom in to show that Jack in this picture, and that Jack has been there since 1921. So that's what I was saying. Like, all the furniture is covered, the sofa is missing, and Jack is in this picture. Had she been up there and seen this, and like at a previous visit, and for some reason picked this guy out in her head and just made this whole thing up, and the whole movie is a dream. Because you've kind of got this dreamy song, with Midnight and the Stars and You. So that's makes me wonder, was this whole thing a dream, or is this just, more of her psychosis? That she's left with Danny and the snowcat, and you'll see that when you watch the movie. And she's just in her head again, trying to soothe herself, with that, oh, I didn't really kill him, he's kind of always been there. So again, not quite certain, but what I can tell you is that I think, from looking at it this way, that it's all Wendy. Like, Jack is not this brutal jerk who's just, abusive to his wife, abusive to his kid, mouthy to everybody, belittles everybody to every moment, so I think this is all just from her psychosis, whatever her mental disorder is. It's not disclosed. Again, this is like 1980 when this movie's made. Had they done this today, would it be that she was, bipolar, schizophrenic? That would be up for a psychiatrist. But when you start looking at these things like Catcher in the Rye, if you never read this for school, I did, and remember that story, it kind of, explains a lot of this. It would explain why she's reading that and that story, and how similar it is to the story here. And again, where the theory of the Red Book, like I said, it's the book wasn't published till 2009, yet it was widely known about since the early 60s. That Jung did have this piece that he had written. It was his private journals of his own self-reflection and him fighting his own inner demons, and brought up, coined the phrase, active imagination. That it's the idea of having dreams when you are wide awake. So could you imagine having a nightmare, just like right now? Like me, I'm sitting here talking, but I'm also actually having a nightmare. And I wake up and I'm like, oh, hey, what are y'all? Oh, the camera's on, right? Like, that's active imagination. So a lot of these things while she's awake, like she killed Mr. Halloran, she killed her husband, but we show her kind of like shocked as to, what did I do? You just killed somebody. You killed two people. You tried to kill your kid. So that's my contention. I think this is probably one of the most in-depth looks at, showing you all the clues that lead up to being Wendy. Like I said, I've seen a few videos out there. When I started noticing these things last week, when I was watching it last Monday, and was like, something's not right. Like, I thought I saw something that I didn't see. Then I had to rewind it. And then, for the way I watch films, I just was like, I'm going to watch the whole thing over again, because maybe I'm missing something that shows why this happened. So, like I said, over the last week, I've watched this thing like 13 times. I've written pages and pages of notes, time stamping what happened when did I see this? When did this light switch appear, but now it's gone? To even just kind of the sound and some of the music. And like I said, and even at the end with this, very specific song, a very haunting melody, from like the 1920s. That a lot of this is just, somebody's mental fitness. How far can you go? Because the manager at the very beginning even kind of alludes to us, and is, again, planting a seed of that. It can get really bad up here. People get cabin fever. It's tough to be this isolated. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. So for 5 months, like, you're in a prison. You're in a beautiful prison. You have everything you could want or need, right? But there's like no television. There's no movies. What are you going to go play darts? How many times can you do that? And there's like maybe a pool table or something. We don't see if there's a swimming pool or any kind of other activities. And like I said, the snow is almost all the way up to the building. So I think Wendy lost it. Jack tried to call to get her out of there. He called Mr. Ullman, that's shown to us, because Mr. Halloran said, yeah, I got a call from Mr. Ullman telling me I need to go replace these unreliable assholes. So that's my contention. I think that all of this was a dream, or it's Wendy psychosis. But just at the very end, why are they showing us that? Why are they showing this, that all the furniture is covered? And again, like I said, leave your comments down below and tell me, do you think it's that it was all a dream, or is it that Mr. Halloran came in, to take over and, covered everything up, maybe turned off the generator and all that stuff. And they just decided, hey, this is another tragedy we've had. Now we've just got to completely close down until spring. So it's one of those two options. What are your thoughts? And do you agree? Do you think that this is Wendy? Do you think that Wendy did all of this? Is it that this is just, her active imagination? And if you've seen the movie, are you looking at this in a completely different way? Like, oh my God, Stanley Kubrick has duped us for almost 40 years. Because everything that we know in pop culture, and every time we see, like, there's Mountain Dew commercials about Jack, breaking down the door and, they stick in a Mountain Dew or something like that. I think Bryan Cranston did a commercial for the Super Bowl with that. But this has been around in pop culture forever, that we think that this guy's just, has lost his mind. And I think we've all been looking at it wrong. I think we've all watched this movie the wrong way, or took the wrong thing away from it. So, like I said, go back, if you can, look up some stuff on Carl Jung. You can look it up on Audible. The Red Book and the Black Books are available for audio, and it's just it's just an amazing listen to hear him talk about this. And when he talks about psychosis and dealing with your inner demons and having this active imagination, it's pretty in depth. And so that's where you can see where people would think this is that book on the desk. So there's that. There are other, like I said, you can search on YouTube. There are a couple of other videos that kind of get into this, but I don't think as in depth as I am. This movie is available on YouTube to rent or buy. So if you've not seen it or haven't seen it in a while and don't own it, you can rent it or buy it through YouTube here. It's also available on HBO Max. This is a Warner product. So this is on HBO Max, and it's currently on there right now. That's how I've been watching it the past couple of weeks, because I have an HBO Max subscription. It's the only subscription I have of any of the streaming services. I don't have Netflix or any of that other stuff. So if you don't join, they've got all the great movies are on there. To me, I think the great classics are all on HBO, because they also have TCM as part of that too, as HBO Max. So if you love old movies, all that's on there. But so HBO Max is where you can watch The Shining if you have a subscription, or you can rent or buy it from YouTube. So check out those two places. I hope you've enjoyed this deep dive. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you enjoy my content, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And like I said, leave me a comment. Tell me what your thoughts are on this movie. What do you remember? Are you going to watch it again now and see? And are you going to be like, oh my God, I never noticed that? Tell me. Let's start the conversation. I hope this has been educational. I hope this has been entertaining for you. And again, please hit the subscribe button, and I will talk to you next time. Have a wonderful day.